Good evening. I'd like to open the meeting by, first of all, welcoming all of you to our boardroom. We're here twice a month, and you're welcome to stay. We usually are here till 10:30, and you're more than welcome to stay, but nobody ever does. So,
But you could be the first.
So we're particularly happy to see so many people here because we're recognizing some very special students this evening. But first, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Sylvia Reyes is the principal at Los Animas School, and she has brought along some students to do this for us.
Good evening, Superintendent Flores, Board Member Ms. Midgard, and our rest of our wonderful board members and friends and community. It's my pleasure to have my students at Las Animas School. They do the pledges every morning. Every morning. They get up there, they're early, and I want them to come up here and introduce who they are.
My name is Daniel Deaver, and I do the pledges at my school.
My name is Riley.
Garrett Stevenson.
And we're going to do the pledges now.
Please remove your hats and caps. Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now for the Character Counts Pledge. I pledge to be a kid of character. I'll be worthy of trust. I'll be respectful and responsible, doing what I must. I'll always act with fairness. I'll show that I care. I'll be a good citizen and always do my share.
Ahora en español. Prometo ser un niño dedicado a buen carácter. Seré niño de confianza. Seré exitoso y responsable haciendo lo que debo. Siempre seré justo. Mostraré en compasión. Seré buen ciudadano y siente de mi parte.
Thank you. You may be seated.
We always begin our meeting with the approval of the agenda. And board members, all of our votes this evening will need to be by roll call because we have one member who is absent on sick leave this evening.
I think he's on the phone.
He's here. He's on the phone.
Are you here, BC?
I'm here.
Oh,
Great.
wonderful.
Yeah.
He's here. But we will still need to do this by roll
Yes.
call. So I will entertain a motion
Move
for
approval.
approval of the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And roll call, please.
Heather Bass,
Yes.
B.C. Doyle,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Pat Midgard,
Yes?
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pacino,
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
And at this time, we have our superintendent, Deborah Flores, at the podium, and she is going to introduce the students who will be recognized.
Actually, the principals and other staff are going to call out the names, but first I'd like to welcome you all here and acknowledge all of you, because when students reach this level of accomplishment, we know that they've had a support team behind them. And we really appreciate all you do to support your students' performance in our schools. And we're really pleased this evening to be able to recognize we should have done elementary and middle school on 2 different nights. I can see that now. We weren't expecting this many people, so we'll do that next time. But we have 67 students that we're recognizing this evening for receiving the highest possible score on the CASP, which is an amazing accomplishment. I've been around when the students are taking these tests, and I think many of us would have difficulty, certainly with the 8th grade level and the 11th grade level tests. They are very difficult. They're all done on computers now, no more pencil and paper, no more, well, there's a few multiple choice items, but most of them are open-ended questions or problems that they have to actually solve and show their work, or they're writing paragraphs and even at the higher levels doing research and then responding to questions. So they're very high-level assessments of our students' ability, and it's really great that we have some students that scored the highest possible score. we used to call it perfect score or, 600 on the old CST. That's gone away. So it's a range now, but these students were all in that top range of the highest possible scores that were achievable on this test. So you should all be very proud of your children or your family members and friends. So what we're going to do, and by the way, the tests are grades 3 through 8 and 11. So we're going to be recognizing tonight elementary and middle school students. And we're going to start with elementary. So you can send them in. So first we have ADB and Principal Velia Codiga. And the principal or a staff member will call out the names while I hand them the certificates. Laura, are the certificates right here? They're right here. Great, you're ahead of me. Board President and Vice President, do you want to join us? And you're going to read it, but we need to stand that way a little bit for them to be caught on camera. Okay. We have to do this once, yeah, that's right. And parents, as we do each one, we'll give you an opportunity to take pictures, so don't worry, we give you a few seconds for that.
And our meetings show up on YouTube, so you could find it if you want to watch this.
Okay, now we got it.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to introduce Sebastian Cepeda, and he is receiving this for both ELA and math. Now we have Evan Arias, and he is receiving his for ELA.
Everybody else watch. All right, great. Thank you. As we recognize them, it's totally your choice to stay or leave. We'll leave that up to you since we're so crowded. Now we have Los Animas with Sylvia Reyes.
It is my pleasure and my honor to recognize Matthew DeWitt for perfect score in math. And for having perfect score in English language arts and math, McKenna Cooper.
So now we have Luigi Aprea, Sammy Espinosa, principal.
Okay, what an honor to be here to celebrate these students. Our first student being recognized is not here tonight, but for a top score in English, Gianna Tassio. For a top score in math, Evan Vernon. For a top score in math, Dominic Vu. And for a top score in both English language arts and math, Leanne Panfil.
Our next school is Rod Kelly, and we have Marissa Salcido, the principal.
Thank you and good evening. I'm very excited to be here. I have one student we're recognizing for his top score in math, and that is Joshua Hauk.
Kermit? I don't know which school's next. Rucker? Okay. Rucker and Kathleen Bierman will be calling out the names.
Recognize some students at Rucker School, and I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Anderson, who is ill tonight. So first we have, for math, we have Maya Bayrit. For ELA, we have Amaya Avila. Also for ELA, Matthew Guptill. And for ELA, Jana Waba. Finally, for ELA, Chloe Moncrief Jen.
All right, we're doing something really special tonight that we've never done before. We had a special request by Chloe's mom, Loretta, because her father is overseas in Japan and could not be here this evening, and he asked to do something special, which we're going to do right now. Chloe, you got to look that way. Volume. We tested this earlier and it worked.
It did.
Well done. Down low left.
Yeah, that one's all the way up. Got the one on the right.
For some reason. Sorry, Chloe.
Okay.
Basically, what you're now going to do is congratulate. Sorry about this. This worked earlier. We tested it several times. But Chloe's dad, if we can't get it working since I've seen it, he was saying how proud he is of Chloe for receiving this award. And sorry that he couldn't be here this evening, but he just is so proud of her accomplishment on this state assessment. And I'm really sorry this isn't working because we wanted this to be really special. Sorry, Chloe. We'll get it. Where's Chloe's mom? Loretta? Sorry about that. It worked earlier. Good. Thanks. I don't know. Yes. We have another Luigi. That's okay. Okay. All right. So you want to announce it?
Yes, so this is Gianna Tassio, who got a top score in English Language Arts, and we really wanted her to be able to shake the superintendent's hand. So give her another round of applause.
All right, so we're going to move on to middle school, and the first middle school is Brownell, and Rebecca Mullen will be introducing the students.
I was going to say where they're coming from. Okay.
And just so you know, all of these sixth graders were at an elementary school when they earned this score. So we're going to call out their elementary school when we do the middle schools because they deserve some recognition too for the great job that they did.
Okay, let's start. For sixth grade English, Elena Finucane from El Roble. Logan Corona from Luigi. Zaya Motley Homich from Luigi. For math, Ari Rutman from Rucker. High scores in both English and mathematics, Joshua Jang from Rucker. And Eric Palmer from Rucker. Now we're going to acknowledge our 7th and 8th graders who scored high performances in English. Rhea Baines, Victor Chen, Abigail Finucane, Luke McCaw, Jasmine Mead, Alexis Miller, Samantha Soled. High scores in mathematics, Ashley Bain, Erin Dutra, Alexis Kong, Sean Kropf, Ethan Robledo. High scores in both English and mathematics. Sarah Arcello. Jackson Moreno. Rafael Romo. Darius Rutman. Samantha Tran. And Zach Zollinger. Congratulations, Brownell.
Jerry, can we cut the screen? That'll work. Great. Great. Just make sure we get this. Okay, that'll work. Good, much better, much better. All right. Okay, that's good. Just, we'll make it work. Everyone have it? Great. Congratulations. Follow Ms. Now we have Solar Sano Middle School, and Maria Walker, principal, will be introducing the students. And you've got the elementary names, right? The elementary school. Great. Good. You guys can stop right here. All right.
Alrighty. Before I call the names, just congratulations, students, for your outstanding academic achievement. I'm going to start with the 6th grade, and both of these students were from Rucker. Mason Dubenko. And then we have also from Rucker, Lavender Wang. These, the next students did outstanding academic achievement in English. Alyssa Casasos, she's not here. Yoli Cruz Jimenez, no. Vianney Garcia Pimentel. Natalie Hack, I don't think she's here. Emily High. Michelle Fan. Brian Walters. Ellison Ufanoy. The next group of students did the academic achievement in math. Elian Castillo. Isaac Wang. Camberly Johnson. Liam Park. Karina Rodriguez. Cody Sims. And in English, language arts, and math, we have Vijay Keitana Boena. Leo Lee. And Ryan Vincent Ramil.
And now we have South Valley Middle School. Patricia Madrigan, principal.
All right, good evening, everybody, and thank you, everybody, for your presence here and your support, because without you, we wouldn't be able to have these awards. First person to receive the perfect score in language arts comes to South Valley from Las Animas Elementary, and that's Anna Tarico. And then we have Rod Cali student, Madison Guerrero. And our Rod Cali student, Isabella Tovar. Perfect score in English language arts. And another perfect score from Rod Cali, Emma Van Laar. And our 8th grade student who received perfect score in language arts, Abram Cortez. Our 7th grade student who received perfect score in language arts, Emma Davis. our 7th grade student who received perfect score in language arts, Kayla Vasquez. And for mathematics, we have our 8th grader, Erin James. And our 8th grade student for mathematics, perfect score, Fabian Martinez Torres. And perfect scores in language arts and mathematics, we have our 7th grade student, Shay Matthews. Congratulations. How about our 6th grade students? All right, right there. Come on. All right, great. Thank you so much. That'll make it work. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Where's everyone going?
All right, just give everyone a minute. So Laura, can you have all the staff come over? We're going to do our employee recognition awards this evening, and we have them all in the staff room. We set up a nice little treat for them over there because we knew we wouldn't have room for them to sit here during this. So they're coming over now. Yeah. Next time we're going to put elementary on a separate night and do, even though elementary was, I think, 22. The problem was that we had 6th graders that we wanted to recognize for the elementary school, that they received the score, but we'll divide it up next time. We learn every year how to do this. Okay, so they're coming. And we're not going to do these on the same night. What were we thinking? All right, hopefully we have all of the folks that are here for the employee recognition. And thank you for your patience this evening. I don't know what we were thinking when we put these awards together. It seemed like a great idea. Now we know not to do it this way, but it'll work. So I'm really pleased this evening to introduce to you our first recipients of our employee recognition program for this school year, 2017-18. I know you know that we started this program a year ago, so we recognized some staff last year, but this is the first time this year. And we're really pleased. We had, as you know, we recognize an employee from our 4 employee organizations. So we're recognizing one from each of our CSEA, GFP, GTA, and management. So we'll be recognizing a person from each of those organizations. And we had 25 nominations again. So we are receiving Every time we do it, we're receiving quite a few nominations. And then we have a committee that makes the selection and then brings it to cabinet. So anyway, we've narrowed it down to 4 individuals this evening, and we're going to be recognizing them now. So I'm going to start with the California School Employees Association CSEA Award. And I'd ask Don Giles to come forward, please. And if you stand up here. And I'm going to tell you why Don was nominated. First of all, he attended Gilroy Unified Schools. Which schools did you go to?
Rucker and South Valley and Gilroy High.
Cool. Rutgers, South Valley, and Gilroy High. And he's been an employee in our district for actually more than 30 years, because you drove a bus for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And last year, or actually almost 2 years ago, he became a dispatcher. So he's been with us well over 30 years. And fellow dispatcher Jeannie Leninger, is she here? Nominated him along with his supervisor, Trish, who's here, Tice. And I'm just going to share a few words of the nomination. Don stepped into the role of AM dispatcher in July 2016 and has continued to make great growth in this position. The AM dispatcher arrives prior to any other transportation employee to ensure that all the routes are covered and to ensure that all employees are present and accounted for. The position can be stressful, and when trying to coordinate assignments with limited staff, Don is always able to figure it out and make it succeed. He's a hard worker. He always puts the needs of the district first. He's always willing to fill in and help. He'll drive an extra route when necessary and stay longer than his normal shift. He provides top-notch customer service with a cheerful attitude towards parents, teachers, and staff. He's continuously thinking of ways to improve the routes and the services to our stakeholders. Don comes in early, stays late, and works long hours to make sure that our special needs students have a safe ride to school every day. He deals courteously with rushed parents, handles short notices, and deals with special circumstances like the true professional that he is. So Don, on behalf of the district, we want to give you this plaque. Well, actually, I keep doing that. We decided to create our own special award, and so everyone receives one of these. And so on behalf of the district and the board, I'd like to thank you for all your hard work, your dedication, your 30-plus years to the district. And this says Gilroy Unified School District Recognition Award, November 2nd, 2017, presented to Donald Giles. So congratulations. Picture. This will be easier than what we were just doing.
Can I have you kneel?
No. Great. Congratulations. Thank you. Good work. And now we're going to recognize our Gilroy Federated Paraeducator, GFP Award recipient, Maria Sorensen. Maria, we all know Maria well, since she comes and translates for us. Maria began her 24-year employment with the district on December 13th, 1993, as an attendance clerk, and then as a part-time translator. In 2004, she became a full-time district translator, and as you know, she comes to some of our board meetings, and we see her a lot of different places. She does a whole lot of things for the district. She was nominated by Jennifer Del Bono, who's back there, and I'm going to read from the nomination. Thank you, Jennifer. Maria is the ultimate professional when it comes to serving our district with translation services. She regularly translates complicated IEP meetings and expulsions. Oftentimes, she accompanies the residency verification specialist, A.J. Young, and Jennifer, on home visits to address truancy and chronic absenteeism and to verify residency. Maria always goes the extra mile by translating documents when they're needed the same day. When there's an emergency in the district, which is where I use her, Maria makes it a priority to quickly translate documents and messages. In addition to document translation, she also provides translation for important district business, including school events, graduations, and board meetings. And she's efficient and accurate in all her work, and we rely on her tremendously. We all do. Maria often supports evening meetings for parents, as well as taking on extra responsibilities by translating for outside agencies so that they can better serve the community. She always supports a parent when needed, ensuring they receive proper assistance, and she oftentimes acts as a liaison for parents, ensuring that their voices are heard. So Maria, on behalf of the Board of Education in the district, we're very proud to recognize you this evening also with one of our special awards, and I'll read it again. Gilroy Unified School District Recognition Award, November 2nd, 2017, presented to Maria Perez Sorensen. Congratulations. Great. Thanks. And now we have our Gilroy Teachers Association, or GTA, award recipient, Benita Wilson. Where's Benita? Thanks. Congratulations, Benita. Oh, that's okay. Benita began her employment 23 years ago with the district as a substitute teacher. We've heard this so many times, these great teachers that started as substitutes. So hopefully we're going to talk about the ones we're hiring now, 20 years from now, right? She has held the position of reading resource teacher, literacy facilitator, and classroom teacher. She's taught at ADB, Los Animas, and Rucker Elementary Schools, and currently she's at Glenview, where she's taught for 15 years. Whoa, I wouldn't worry about it. They fall over really easily. I'm sure that young child looks real. All right, so fellow first grade teacher Jenny Baccio submitted Benita's nomination. Is she here? Great, yeah, you're here. And here's a few reasons that she nominated her. Benita is a model veteran teacher. She's been the leader of her grade level team and supports new teachers that she works with. She's worked in the district for many years and is always available for advice and help to a fellow teacher, and she's a great resource to the entire Glenview staff. Benita's dedication is evident because every day her car, and I've seen it because I drive by there lots of times, it's the first car in the parking lot and usually the last to leave. She makes it her job to try to reach every single student every day. She has high expectations, and her students rise to meet them. She's an amazing reading teacher, having all of her students set personal reading goals, and she also does teaching intervention during and after the school day. Her students' beautiful artwork can often be seen in the windows of her classroom. Benita accepts new district initiatives and often takes the lead in her team with a strong willingness to implement them, and has also volunteered to be on many school and district committees. So Benita, on behalf of the board and the district, we're really pleased to be able to also give you an award. And I won't read it again. I think we all have the pattern down, but this one says Benita Wilson. Great. Are you going to take one too? Go ahead. Great. All right. And our last employee recognition recognition this evening is for management. So I'd like to ask Maria Walker to come up here. Maria began her employment in the district 29 years ago as a substitute. She taught elementary school for over 11 years, and I didn't even know this, that she taught under Linda when Linda was, were you principal or vice principal? Principal at Jordan. Isn't that amazing? And she taught 6th grade at Los Animas for 3 years, and then she taught at Rod Kelly for 7 years. I didn't even know all that. I've known Maria since I arrived because when Solorzano was created as a school, Maria went there with Sal, and she was a phenomenal English teacher and then department chair. Then we made her vice principal, and for the last 7 years,
I'm starting my 7th year, yes.
principal of Solorzano, and she's done a great job. In fact, we'll be recognizing Maria again in February because just this past week on Monday it was announced that she has been selected as the Chamber of Commerce Educator of the Year. We totally surprised her at Monday's staff meeting. She had no clue that was coming, so it was great to surprise her. But this award, the nomination came from Adrian Nora. Nora. Adrian, thank you. And here's what he said. As a new teacher at GUSD, I've noticed Mrs. Walker exhibiting excellent leadership skills by supporting and mentoring the current academic faculty and staff. Mrs. Walker is the most positive, supportive leader in my school. Her past knowledge as an educator bonds to the skills that the teachers at Solorzano need to showcase. Everybody becomes a better educator by having Mrs. Walker lead the way. Mrs. Walker is a present school leader who has gone through tremendous effort making restorative justice circles a second arm of the activities at Solorzano Middle School. Her guidance and work in RJ circles have led to an amazing positive school culture. Teachers and students benefit every day from the success brought by the leadership of Mrs. Walker. Mrs. Walker goes above and beyond by working and contributing outside of the normal scope of her job. She is a mentor to other principals and an important liaison to the city of Gilroy and its departments. She also volunteers monthly at leadership district meetings and events. I should have had him help us write the one for the chamber. I could have used some of that. So congratulations, Maria. We're really proud of you. And, you know, we didn't mention, she's been on every committee I've asked her to be on and helped with negotiations. I mean, she's done so many things here at the district office and mentored the other 2 middle school principals. So we really appreciate all you've done, Maria. Congratulations. Everybody? Don't move. So we want all of you to come back up. All of the employees, the 4 employees, we want to take a picture of you. Good. So Don, Benita, are you still here? Good. Good. Where's Maria? Good. All right, so we're going to take a picture of all of us. Hopefully we can, maybe if we turn in towards each other, we can get us all in. All right, thank you. Thanks so much. That concludes our recognitions. Thank you.
Suggested platform shoes for
have to say. Not my favorite. Okay. We want to take a 5-minute or 3-minute break. Just wait. Yeah, we'll just wait. Yeah, I don't know. Is there somebody behind it?
A little voice there.
Don't be shy. If you'd like to move forward, you can do that.
I don't think I even need to say this. There's nobody here.
Okay, okay. Okay, at this time, we'll continue with the agenda. We're on 4E, Report of Action Taken in Closed Session. And,
We
pardon?
have none.
No public comment.
There's no public comment. I already knew that. Yeah, there's no public comment. So at this time, I will entertain a motion on case 2018-02.
Move to expel.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. And this will be a roll call vote.
Heather Bass. Yes. B.C. Doyle.
Yes.
Mark Good.
Yes.
Pat Midgard.
Yes.
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Pacino.
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
Do I have a further motion on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. The motion carries. This is, now we're on 2018-03.
Move to expel.
Second?
Would you like to clarify the time on that?
The period of.
The period of-
exposure
One semester.
through the end of the first semester.
Correct.
Okay, so this is a motion for an expulsion through the end of the first semester, which would be the end of January 2018.
End of December, I think. December.
Yeah, it ends December
Okay,
15th or 16th, whatever that Friday is.
okay. So Friday, the 16th of 2017. And did I have a second?
22nd, sorry. Chris just told us. Thanks, Chris.
22nd? Thank you.
I believe I did.
December 22nd. Okay.
I believe I did.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Heather Bass.
Yes.
B.C. Doyle.
Yes.
Mark Good.
Yes.
Pat Midgard.
Yes?
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Pacino.
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. We have no other information from closed session to report at this time. Okay, report to the board. We have two parts in this. We have our student board representative, Sloan Pace from Gilroy High School, followed by the superintendent's report.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, school board members, Dr. Flores. My name is Sloan Pace, and I am the school board representative from Gilroy High School. I was very excited when I got my assignments for this meeting. I got to report on Rucker, which was my elementary school. They have a lot of exciting things going on right now. They've been doing a lot of fall activities, including a harvest festival that they had, which included a pumpkin patch, and you can see
some kids there at the pumpkin patch. They also had a Halloween-themed read-in last Friday, so the whole day was dedicated to reading and similar activities. They had a fun run fundraiser in the beginning of the year where they raised $22,000 for the school. They've been redoing their school garden this year, and they have been growing tomatoes and cantaloupe, which I was interested to find out. And they've been using that as an incentive. They do a Harvest of the Month promotion where students get some of that produce from the garden. Rucker just finished up their fall play. They did a character counts play, and they will be doing a musical in the spring. And some other upcoming events, they're having a book fair and the annual turkey trot, which is where 4th graders and 5th graders get to run the day before Thanksgiving break. And they will be hosting Breakfast with Santa and be continuing their monthly family math nights. It has been an exciting month and a half at Gilroy High School. We had the Battle of the Bell against Christopher, and for the first time this game has been played, Gilroy High School won, which is very exciting for everyone. So the bell is now in the Gilroy High School office. And yes, okay. We hosted a blood drive in the end of September. We had over 40 people donate their blood, and all for a good cause. Here we have some people. Just last weekend, we had senior dinner dance, so all seniors who were eligible to go got to go out to Berkeley, and we were on a boat. It was a lot of fun. There was dinner, casino games, dancing, a beautiful view of the San Francisco Bay. Here you have the guy with the poker chips. That's Trevor Lewis, and he was our grand winner from the night. He had the most money, and he won 2 free tickets to prom from that. Yesterday was crazy for everyone at Gilroy High. We were doing all things Halloween. So we had a performance by the dance classes. They did a thriller flash mob in Centennial Circle. We also had honor roll brunch, so students who had a 3.0 GPA or above were eligible to come have Panera bagels and hang out with their friends during brunch. We had over 700 students eligible for that. We also had the Takamachi middle schoolers visiting our campus that day, so we put on a potluck for them, toured them around the school, and they all came dressed up in costumes, so they got to experience some of the festivities with the rest of the students. And something ASB did this year is we made a pumpkin for every single student who attends the school, and we put them on the cafeteria, and students could come find their pumpkin and receive a piece of candy in exchange. And just some upcoming events. I also want to mention that we have had a really successful fall sports season. We have 4 sports that we are league champions for. So that's girls water polo, girls field hockey, boys and girls cross country. And if football wins tomorrow, they will be the league champions as well. And tomorrow at Gilroy High School, we are hosting Rock the Mock for Gilroy and GECA students. Thank you.
Thank you, Sloan. And Superintendent Debbie Flores will give her report.
Thank you. I'll try to keep mine short since we're way behind. I continued site visits, and I appreciate board members who attended the site visits with me at Mount Madonna. It was Linda, right? Mm-hmm. And Jaime. And at Gilroy High, Jaime, and was that it?
Me.
Linda. I have to write these down. Anyway, I had 2 really good visits. I know the board members shared, I believe, my perceptions at Mount Madonna. We're always just so impressed with the rigor and the high expectations at Mount Madonna. I see people waving their paper. I apologize for how warm it is in here, by the way, but we have a new roof that's being put on, and today the chemicals were too strong, so we had to shut down our HVAC system. So that's why we don't have any air in here right now, sorry. Anyway, we had some really good monthly meetings. We had our South County Youth Task Force policy team meeting and had a really important discussion about the future, which you'll be hearing about again in a little bit. Had a meeting with Gavilan president, so she and I could talk about various ways that we currently collaborate and will continue. And then we had our monthly facilities subcommittee meeting with some really important topics in that meeting. On October 20th, as was mentioned already, we had our certificated staff development day, and I sent you the survey results that we take on all of our staff development days, and they were very positive. We had over, I think, 170 at secondary and 180 roughly at elementary that responded, and the results were very positive. So clearly our staff development was meeting the needs of our teachers. We had a Rod Kelly walk bike audit, which several board members, and I participated in the debrief only, but board members and staff were able to participate in the audit. And it was a really interesting process seeing how they conduct, the county Safe Routes to School conducts these audits, and it basically analyzes the whole pattern of how students get to school or get home from school, and may have a series of recommendations for the district. As we've already announced, Principal Maria Walker was named Chamber Educator of the Year, and the following day, Mark Turner and I surprised a GECA student Michael Kong, who's been selected as the Chamber's Youth Leadership Award winner. And they'll both be recognized, of course, at the February event. It's actually February 3rd this year, so hopefully many of us will be able to attend, so that it's a major event for everyone in the audience of when the Chamber recognizes not only the Educator of the Year and the Student of the Year, but Man of the Year, Woman of the Year, Big Business of the Year, Little Business of the Year. So that event is when all those recognitions occur. We're really proud of Michael and Maria for being part of that. Today we had Rock the Mock at Christopher High School. We had our highest number of students participating in the 4 years that we've done it. We had about 120 students and had some really great workshops. A new one this year was Angela Alvarado from the DA's office did a workshop on social media and how that can affect your ability to get a job down the road. It was very good. We had the usual workshops that we've been doing, Dress for Success, how to prepare for an interview, and then we had about 30 people from our business community conduct the mock interviews. That's why it's called Rock the Mock. That went really well. Tomorrow, and we had a new component at the end where about 8 large businesses like Target had a table. We had a job fair. So the students, after going through this process, then were able to go over and actually apply for jobs at like Target, Zoomies, Levi's, Gilroy Gardens. There were eight employers that came. They're coming again tomorrow at Gilroy High. And that portion, the job fair, was open to any student that wanted to participate. And we had really good participation. So Rock the Mock tomorrow at Gilroy High. On Sunday, I hope 2 or 3 of you will be able to join me and Diane Padilla for the Mount Madonna kickoff of their WASC. So you'll probably recall what happens with the WASC is on Sunday afternoon they have sort of the welcoming meeting for the WASC team, and that is on Sunday. I believe it's at 4. I'll confirm that with you, but I'd really appreciate if 2 or 3 board members could be there. And then on the 17th, Mount Madonna Thanksgiving Feast. Many of us go to that every year, so I hope some of you will be able to go to that. And then, of course, we have a couple of holidays coming up in the next couple weeks, like the Veterans Day, which will be observed on Friday the 10th, and then the Thanksgiving break, which is the 20th to the 24th. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Flores. Next part of our agenda, 6, is the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve this portion of the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's a roll call vote.
Heather Bass.
Yes.
Lucy Doyle.
Yes.
Mark Good.
Yes.
Pat Midgard.
Yes.
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Pacino.
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
Consent agenda passes unanimously. Action information items, 7A, Gilroy Federation of Para-Educators, AFT Local 1921, AFL-CIO, initial proposal for the 2017-2018 school year. This is an action item, and this information will be presented to us by Aracelia O'Connor, who is the president of the Gilroy Federation of Paraeducators.
Good evening, Superintendent Flores, staff, board members, and student rep Pace. Sorry. I am here tonight representing the Gilroy Federation of Paraeducators, presenting the board our initial bargaining unit proposal for the 2017-2018 school year. We're asking the board to accept it, and I make a prediction this year that our negotiations won't take very long, because I'm sure the district team will agree that everything in our proposal is reasonable and greatly, greatly deserved. So I'm sure that it will be very successful for both sides. So thank you.
I'll entertain a motion. Unless we have questions for Araceli. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, and this is a roll call vote. Gina, thank you.
Heather Bass?
Yes.
B.C. Doyle?
Yes.
Mark Good?
Yes.
Pat Midgard?
Yes.
James Pace?
Yes.
Linda Pacino?
Yes.
Jaime Rosso?
This passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Item 7B, the City of Gilroy 2040 General Plan Update. This is an information item. Stan Ketchum, the senior planner with the City of Gilroy, will provide the governing board with a presentation on the general plan update.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, board. Good evening, members of the audience. As you recall, on September 25th, we had a joint session with City Council, and the board requested to have some information on the general plan in the process to come back to the full board. So here we have Stan, the senior planner from the city, and he'll begin his presentation. Thank you, Stan.
Good evening, Board President and members of the board and Superintendent Flores. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come share the project that is sometimes called kind of the guide to the future for a community. Excuse me. I'm going to try and cover three components, and as quickly as I can. What I call GP 101, General Plan 101, a little bit about what a general plan is and why communities do them. Secondly, the two-part story of our general plan process to date. And lastly, just a little bit about how schools and the general plan fit together. GP 101. What is a general plan? Well, it forms the blueprint, often called, or the guide for the future development of a community. It establishes the public policy for the distribution of land uses for future growth, both public lands and private property. Many policies from a lot of diverse subjects relate to development, transportation, infrastructure, housing, parks, recreation, and open space, historic preservation, the environment, or some of them. Other important community needs that are addressed, the fiscal and economic health of the community, downtown development, very, very fresh in everybody's minds here in Gilroy, and public engagement is always a huge component of a process like this. There we go. The general plan has two components. One is on the right, the general plan land use map, land use diagram, which shows how future growth is planned to occur in a community. And that's backed up or in components with a policy document, usually quite thick policy document that embodies all the different policies of the City Council for all those topics I mentioned. Why we do an update of a general plan and why are we doing it now? Well, the state planning guidelines tell us that we should be doing that about every 10 years, each community, cities and counties alike. Gilroy's current adopted general plan was adopted in 2002. We began the current update in 2013, so we kind of started about on time. The primary objectives of the update process are to respond to the changes in the community during that time frame, circumstances that affect the future growth of the city, changing community priorities. I'll be touching a little bit on Measure H, the urban growth boundary that you're probably familiar with. Significant communication, significant population growth, trying to say, certainly during that time frame since 2002. We definitely have housing issues, very clear. Economic and development and employment growth are key goals for the community, and certainly the increased demand on city services going forward. The general plan update process is quite a team effort, both within the city and the community. City staff are involved. We have a team of consultants that involve planning professionals, transportation experts, environmental consultants, and economic consultant as well. The City Council appointed a 30-member General Plan Citizen Advisory Committee that you're probably familiar with. James Pace as board representative. We have always had significant community engagement. In the first part of our process, we had 3 major community workshops. In this second part I'll describe, we're going to have one big one early next year. And both the Planning Commission and City Council are actively participating, and Council obviously makes the final decisions for us. The general plan update process is a multi-step process, as you can see there. That's kind of the list, the to-do list. I'm not going to go through all the individual parts of that, but I meant to thank Alvaro also. You said you have copies of the presentation, so you can study it at your leisure. But that's why it takes 2.5 to 3 years to do one of these projects. As I said, we started in 2013. By end of late 2015, the General Plan Committee had accomplished almost their entire to-do list. We almost finished the project, gotten almost to the stage of getting our environmental impact report underway. And as I mentioned a minute ago, I'm sure you're familiar with Measure H, the urban growth boundary initiative, citizen initiative that was placed on the ballot last November and did pass. And early in 2016, the council decided to put on hold our remaining work on the general plan update until we saw what the outcome of the initiative was. So we were kind of on hiatus for most of 2016. And as you know, the urban growth measure passed at the ballot. So what is an urban growth boundary about? It's a line on a map, and I'll show you in a minute, but it's a very important line because as this initiative established, it is the line beyond which no urban development will be allowed to occur, with very few exceptions, until at least 2040, unless the voters change that. So that is imposed on the city, on the general plan, and that's one of the important reasons why we're starting up again. And I said there are some exceptions there to the urban growth boundary. Parks, educational institutions, wastewater facilities, and actually affordable housing, if the city were interested, could occur outside the urban growth boundary. Not likely, though. So this is the current general plan. Well, it was the current general plan. This is the general plan before the urban growth boundary was put in place. And just to orient you a little bit, Highway 101, the outlets, Leasley. So this is what the plan looked like. The colored area is the area that was intended for future growth at some point in time in the Gilroy General Plan. The Urban Growth Boundary Initiative changed the land uses that are the lime green were placed outside the urban growth boundary and required to stay in permanent open space until 2040. And that greatly affected certainly the north part of Gilroy. This is Day Road right here. I'm sure you will remember the North Gilroy development proposal. This basically took the land, the part of that was north of Day Road, and excluded that. The land south of Day Road is still a part of the future growth area. The area over to the east behind the outlets that used to be called the 660 was also excluded. In the first go-around on the general plan, the city council had actually already intended to change that land back to agriculture. And then some of the future industrial land at the very south end of the city is outside the growth boundary. So once the council understood the results of the initiative, they directed the city, the council agreed to restart the general plan process, and they gave us quite a mandate to go back all the way through these significant steps in the process, which is going back pretty close to the beginning, frankly, and start up again and evaluate what the city's plan should be with the urban growth boundary in place. So we have, this is our kind of our schedule going forward. The General Plan Committee, acronym GPAC, just the other night on the 26th, completed selection of 2 land use alternatives that are going to be analyzed. I'll show you that in a minute, compared to the current adopted plan to help the GPAC, the community, and the commission and council make a final decision about the future growth for Gilroy to 2040. In our process for the alternatives with the General Plan Committee, we studied 5 areas that basically they're called focus areas, and they're focused on because they are the areas where there is still a likelihood for potential future growth. Obviously, we're not changing a lot of the community where everything's built out, but again, the area south of Day Road that's in we call it the neighborhood district area, a southern neighborhood district area way down there around the Gilroy Sports Park. The First Street corridor was studied, downtown, the northeast area that's mostly planned for industrial, and then the southeast area of Gilroy actually was left alone after we started because everybody agreed it should stay the way it is. So those areas are the ones that were studied. The General Plan Committee held 2 meetings to go through a series of discussions about these various areas, and with the objective in mind to pick 2 future scenarios of how growth might occur that can be compared to the current plan that was adopted or that was going to be adopted by the council, to analyze with 20 some odd different criteria, everything, all those different topics I mentioned: housing, employment growth, economics, environment, all the municipal services and infrastructure will be studied over the next couple of months, and then in early 2018 we'll bring the results of that back to the General Plan Committee. So you can see down here at the bottom, the goal was actually to come up with some distinct different choices so we can understand the differences between them. So we have an assumption that's called the housing focus that could allow almost 11,000 more housing units in Gilroy's future to 2040 or beyond, and over 22,000 jobs. And the other one actually has about the same number of jobs, but much, much less housing. That's why it's called the low residential growth. So we'll get a clear understanding of how those differences in housing, particularly, are affected by all those different criteria, especially traffic and such. And that'll be presented to the General Plan Committee, to a community meeting, and then to the Planning Commission and City Council. And the City Council's goal, well, will be to hear from the GPAC, General Plan Committee, on which of these or combination of, of these should become what's called the preferred land use alternative to start the new plan. Lastly, I just wanted to mention briefly, the general plan does have existing policies that address school growth and school location. We show them the current locations on the general plan, have for a long time. There's policies in the current plan about working with the district on locating new schools, and in particular the neighborhood districts, obviously Glen Loma Ranch, where I know the board is working on the new school. We're going to be, I think, expanding that some in the new plan going forward, and we'll be sure letting you guys know what we're up to and get your input for sure. Continuing the current policies, I've been working with Alvaro, and we're going to do something different in our alternatives analysis this year. We've asked the district if we could get help from Tom Williams to do enrollment projections of these 3 different alternatives. So all our alternatives analysis will be able to show the differences in school projection, school enrollments, which we haven't done before. So that's something we'll certainly be sharing with the board early next year when we get the results. And the last thing is a little new. We started this in this go-round. We're also, we want to show in the future adopt a new plan, not exact sites, but working with the board and with the administration, understanding where the board and the district will need a school in the future. Not a particular parcel of land, because that's illegal. We really can't pin down to a specific parcel until you've made a selection of that, but general areas where the district can see, based on these enrollment projections, where you think a school should be. That's important information for the city to know, for future developers to understand that as they're looking at land and development, somewhere in that area, there's going to need to be a school. So be aware of that going forward in their planning with the city. That's it. Happy to answer questions.
Yes. Trustee Good.
Did the reformulation of the general plan have any impact on eliminating the 10th Street Bridge?
No. No, not at all. The general plan, let me see if I can back up. The general plan has a component called the circulation element, which basically shows the type of streets, like whether it's a 2-lane road, an arterial street, and that's about as far as it goes. It won't talk or address, what kind of bridge or size of bridge. It just says we want to put a street there. And that was also part of the Glen Loma Ranch plan adoption as well.
Thank you.
Trustee Pace.
Thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate it. The meetings have been mostly good, sometimes a little frustrating, but the process is moving forward very well. So thank you for including the district as part of it. I'm very happy to hear that Tom Williams will be kind of doing some analysis, so the city really understands the school's needs and how we can work together to make sure all of our problems are solved. So thank you.
Will do.
Other questions, comments, clarification? Trustee Rosso?
Just in general, is this taking into consideration the high-speed rail elements?
Glad you asked. In the 3 alternatives, we have 2 that are including what I kind of call the unofficial preferred alternative. The downtown station area master plan process got to the point of recommending to the city council a set of land uses that they would recommend if the high-speed rail were to come forward, because we've been kind of working parallel to plan if in fact that does occur. The city council has not yet accepted that. They've reviewed it, they've asked for more information. That's still kind of an ongoing process. The other alternative assumes that it's not going to happen. So we're kind of, again, being able to see both sides of that equation, because we don't know. We're kind of having to move our process forward at this point. I think the understanding is the rail authority is supposed to make a decision on a location mid-next year, I think. So, so it's been a little bit frustrating because we don't have their final decision, and so we're kind of analyzing both sides of the coin to see what it would do.
Yes, Mr. Rosso.
And one last, and I know there's an exclusion if a school site were needed to build outside of the urban service area, is that correct?
Yes, that's an opportunity, yes.
Thank you.
Following up on that, does that mean utilities can be brought to that site?
I'm not sure, honestly. I just know the urban growth boundary has an exception for, I know that the main reason it was put in there was because of Gavilan, which is outside. Right. But it does say that, so that's a heck of a question.
Yeah, well, we couldn't build a school without city water, sewer, all that stuff. So.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Ketchum, we really appreciate you bringing this to us.
Thank you so
Happy
much.
to.
Yeah.
We'll keep you informed, both through James and directly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Item 7C, South County Youth Task Force Cal GRIP Grant. Bernice Aguilera, South,
Actually, I'm going to introduce and talk about it.
AKA Debbie Flores, is going to talk about this topic for us.
Right. Well, as you know, Bernice came a couple board meetings ago and made a presentation, and I included all the information we gave you last time just to refresh everyone's minds about what we're requesting. But because the grant, the Cal GRIP grant ends end of December, and we haven't identified, we have identified a grant that we're going to apply for. It's actually called, Bernice, can you go up? Because I'm sure I'll have to ask you questions throughout this. But we're actually applying for a different grant, and maybe you could mention the name of that.
Absolutely. It's a California Violence Prevention Intervention Program.
Right. So they sound similar. But as we mentioned last time, what we've done is asked our partners to step up to the plate and contribute more funds to keep the project going because it's been so successful. It's reduced a lot of really negative statistics, the most glaring of which is the amount of gang activity that we've seen among our youth and in our schools. It's gone way down since this started. And so, for instance, the city is going to fund Bernice's salary entirely. They've really stepped up to the plate. County Supervisor Wasserman went to the County Board of Supervisors, and I think they're contributing $200,000?
$260,000.
And other partners are going to be contributing more so that we can keep the work of the South County Youth Task Force going. And we gave you a full report about this. So tonight, what we're doing is recommending, and it's in your packet, that the board approve an increase in funding for this year and the next 2 years. And that's whether or not we get the grant, because we need every penny we can identify for the types of services that we're providing through this task force. So for this year, the increase or the ask is pretty small. It's only additional $6,000. The next 2 years, we're requesting that we contribute almost $46,000 both years for the project. So we're asking this evening for your approval for the district to make this contribution over a 3-year period. And if you have any questions, Bernice, of course, can answer all of them, and I'll chime in. Linda is currently our board rep. Jaime was on the task force for quite a while. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Board members, any questions?
I'm looking at Exhibit A to this, and I don't see where it goes beyond 2017, 2018, so where's the budget?
If you look on the, where it says South County Youth Task Force Overview,
Where?
that's
The very
this
first page.
very first page after the board agenda item. There's the 3 years, this year and the next.
Right, but if you look at Exhibit A, it says it has the contributions from all the people. The city of Gilroy, the city of Morgan Hill, Board of Supervisors, Gilroy Unified, Morgan Hill Unified, Gilroy Gang Task Force. This just reflects what's being asked of us.
Right, we can't control the other agencies.
No, but have they committed to anything?
Some have. Go ahead, Bernice.
Correct. So the county of Santa Clara has contributed the $266 that we did request of them. The city of Gilroy has also contributed the full amount we requested of them. Morgan Hill Unified is still looking at their numbers to see what they can contribute. The biggest thing, though, even if they don't contribute, is that the funds coming in, the $266, will then be reverted to only support Gilroy if Morgan Hill Unified does not continue. So we will get, and our schools will get those funds directly benefiting the campuses in Gilroy Unified School District.
So the county money requires a local match.
Absolutely. And also the City of Morgan Hill Police Department Recreation are full on and are contributing every penny also.
Right, the only one we're waiting for is the school district. They haven't committed yet, so.
But it's kind of like a win for us because if they don't, then
right.
we get the programming, most of that programming, about 80% of the total budget is school-based or school-supporting programming.
Right. And the other point I wanted to make, Wasserman and I were talking after our policy meeting, and he reminded me that since we started the Youth County Task Force, there's been a major increase of services to Gilroy. Because what we early on in those meetings, myself, Jaime, and others were making the point that we just were not getting a lot of services in Gilroy, like from juvenile probation, and DA's office, and now we have a dedicated person from those two departments. So the county's not only chipping in $260,000, he wanted me to make this point, but they're funding those positions too. For Gilroy.
So I do have a number for that. It's about $600,000 with those added resources that are due to the South County Task Force technical and policy work. In addition to, we did meet with Supervisor Cortez yesterday. We're looking for a restorative center to be based here in Gilroy. It's a pilot program that'll be the first in the state, replicating a really, really positive national model. If we do get that approval, that's an additional anywhere from, I would say, $100,000 to maybe $300,000.
Yeah, so there's been a major increase in services to Gilroy since the task force came together.
Great, well, I support it. Thank you.
Thanks. Jaime has.
I just wanted to comment that, this is a really model example of providing preventative services that reaches into our schools. It has, the data shows, look at the numbers that we stand out as a success story that the county looks at and other communities outside our community look at, and I think it's benefited our students, our schools. It's helped us have the quality. Jennifer, all the things that she's involved with have all contributed to our LCAP school climate and support. And just the fact that we have the county, the city, the joint effort of all these resources, the law enforcement resources, the county resources, it's just a win-win all the way around. And I really appreciate it. And we have great leadership and so what more can we ask? So.
Okay, so before I call for the vote, the last sentence on the first page, the funding requested, so we know what we're being asked, the funding requested from the district for the next 3 years is $21,109,000 for the current school year, 2017-18. That's an increase of $6,109. And then $45,678 for years 2 and 3, which is an increase in funding of $30,678 for both of those years. That's what we're voting on.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and this is a roll call vote.
Heather Bass,
Yes.
B.C. Doyle,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Pat Midgard,
Yes,
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pacino,
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
the motion passes unanimously.
And thanks, Bernice, for coming. And
Thank you,
I want
Bernice.
to echo what Jaime said. Bernice has just brought a completely higher level leadership to this task force since she joined it. And I don't think we'd be where we are without her. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Superintendent Dr. Flores and Board President Midgard and Board of Trustees. I did not want to say this piece of information because I didn't want it, sway your vote. But what we are doing is a model that is being recognized by many smaller cities. And CalGRIP, the Board of State Community Corrections, has asked me to come to Sacramento to teach other cities how to do this, just a little workshop. Aside from that, big cities like Chicago and Dallas have reached out to see what we're doing in Gilroy. So this is causing some waves. So I just want to thank you for your dedication and commitment, even throughout these trying times.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is we have like 25 partners This is a big task force, and they've all agreed to continue meeting even if the funds don't come through. We're so committed to this partnership among all of our agencies.
We should do something too, or we should think about doing something with regards to recognizing the county, because for decades, Gilroy's been the bastard of Santa Clara County. We've got zero in services, zero in help, zero in financials, and at the time when the County Office of Education is pulling their services back away from us, now we have the county sending the money in, so they're stepping up.
Our supervisor has.
He's been an incredible advocate for us.
Wasserman has
Yes.
been incredible.
It's been amazing, yeah.
And, I mean, they're not only, the synergy is not only in the youth task force, but also in the health and safe routes to school and all the initiatives that are being done there. So, and again, chaired by Superman Wasserman.
We'll tell him he has a new title.
And now other Board of Supervisors want to be involved too. So yesterday we met with Supervisor Cortese, Board of Supervisor President. He wants to support directly also. So we're doing
That's
something
great.
great here.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bernice.
Bernice.
Thanks.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, 7D, California Dashboard Local Indicators. This is an information item. Starting the fall of 2017, as part of the California School Dashboard, all districts must go through an annual review of specific topics related to 4 of the state priorities and present an update to the governing board.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Remind me to always put a long descriptor in my intro to give me time to get my PowerPoint set up while it's being read. I like that.
Kermit
Good evening,
Schrock will be doing
Superintendent
this
Flores,
for us.
President Midgard, and Board of Trustees. Yes, I'm here this evening to present on the local indicators for the California Dashboard. So as you may remember from last year, I did a little intro about a year ago on the California Dashboard. It was the little Trivial Pursuit pies. Does that ring a bell? The blue pie and the green pies and yellow, orange, red, right? So that was kind of an early release last year, a kind of, they called it a pilot actually at the state level, but of the new accountability system. And the state is getting ready now for this kind of the second iteration, a more full rollout, and perhaps some change in some of the way they calibrate some of the indicators. In addition, they're adding some new indicators, and this is all going to be happening as a release in December. So in December, we will have, if things stay on track, a new look at our indicators in Gilroy and looking at other districts as well. So if you remember, there were already indicators or little color codes, right, for ELA scores on the CASP, for math scores on the CASP, graduation rate, English learner scores on the CELT test based on growth on the CELT test. And then there were a few indicators that hadn't arrived yet. So one of those new ones that'll be coming out now is the college and career indicator. That'll be coming out in December, in which they look at students who either performed well on the CASP or performed somewhat well on the CASP and completed a CTE pathway, or perhaps CTE pathway with UC readiness. So they're looking at a couple different ways students can qualify as this college career indicator, and they'll have that first iteration of that in December for us to look at. It'll kind of be a baseline for everybody, and then they'll be looking at the growth from the years after that. The other is there is 4 local indicators, and that's what I'm talking about this evening. The 4 local indicators are ones that this district does a self-analysis on and then reports their status to the dashboard. So the report that I'm giving this evening, then we will kind of update our dashboard online so that the public would see our kind of the results of our self-analysis on these local indicators. So I'm going to go through those local indicators this evening, and it's just that part of what the new dashboard release in December will involve. So these local indicators, the district has to do some self-assessment or self-reflection and analyze on these areas, kind of their areas that the state has said these are not things that they can, put a test score or some other percentage on, but that they're holding districts accountable to be measuring. We must report to the governing board the findings on these indicators. then we determine, have we met, not met, or not met for 2 or more years for each of these indicators. However, the met is not, are we well on our way? The met means, did we measure our own progress? So we're saying, yes, we've met the requirement to measure our progress on these indicators. So you will see in the accompanying document, and I can pull it up here, but I don't have it in the PowerPoint, you'll see that for each of the 4 indicators tonight, we have said we have met that indicator. We've met each of these indicators. We have met the responsibility to look at our own progress, do some self-reflection, see how we're doing, and then the following year, continue that process. Continually to annually to analyze our progress on each of those indicators. Here's the 8 state priorities, right? So these are the state priorities that are linked to all of these indicators, right? The ones that are grayed out are the ones that are being measured in other ways. For example, student achievement. That indicator is being measured by the CASP and by the CELT, in the future the LPAC for the English learners. Student engagement, that's the chronic absenteeism indicator. That was the other one I didn't mention before. So the chronic absenteeism will, for the first time this year, perhaps be part of the dashboard. I got a memo recently. The plan was we submitted everybody district in the state submitted their chronic absenteeism data to the state from last year in August. The state is now looking at that and saying, do we feel confident about that data this first year through? So I haven't heard yet if it may or may not be part of this release, but that's how the student engagement is handled and that priority. Access to a broad course of study, that'll kind of be encompassed by the college career indicator. And then outcomes, student outcomes is one they have not determined yet. I think it may be an additional local indicator in the future, but it's not part of the current dashboard system. So priority 1, 2, 3, and 6 are the ones that we're looking at tonight. Basic services. So as you see here, we have a little bit of information from all departments here. So we have little HR, little facilities, we have some ed services. So if different questions come up, we can certainly pull up the export sitting at the table right there. All right, so basic services. We'll look at that one first, and we'll go through each of these priorities. So priority 1. And so this one, what we're using here, the template we have here is a template that the state provided. They provided a template for districts, say, here's the way we want you to look at or report out on your status on each of these indicators. So they've given us this template. There is some option to, tweak it up a bit, and so we thought the first year we would follow this template as the state laid out as our first time through. Then as we reflect with other districts at the county level, we actually just, at the last county meeting, people kind of chimed in on different ways they'd looked at some of this data and this analysis. We may look at it a different way the following year. But this one, looking at the number of misassignments, looking at where facilities do not meet standard, and looking at the required instructional material. So some of these are things that you've already had reported out to you, right? We already had reported out. All students have instructional materials, but we're just putting it together in this one spot to say we have done these things. We didn't go through the process again. We're just verifying that we have gone through this process throughout our year. Priority 2 indicator is on the implementation of academic standards, and actually this is a series of kind of 4 self-reflection tools. I've included a couple of them on the PowerPoint here, but they want us to look at how are we doing on professional learning, our professional development. How are we doing on instructional materials for the Common Core? How are we doing, apart from professional learning, how are we supporting staff to continue to improve their instruction apart from professional development? And then in addition, how are we doing implementing the other academic standards apart from ELA, mathematics, and next generation science standards? So you can see kind of we've given ourselves on the scale of exploration to beginning to initial implementation full to full implementation with sustainability, different markers here, and we've put some bullet points in each of these, kind of saying what are the kind of the markers we used to help us determine where we feel we are on the course. So this one is professional learning. How are we doing on our professional development? Well, we comment here on our PD days, our 3 PD days, how we focused on next generation science standards for the science teachers, how we focused on the past year on mathematics as we've implemented those curricular materials. And sometimes it kind of goes hand in hand with the curricular materials, right, that we've adopted. Social science, you can see we actually gave ourselves a low score. This new social science framework is just rolling out. So we're kind of going back and forth. Do we say we have a high score on the previous standards or a low score on the current standards? It's kind of a catch-22 there. But what we're saying is we need to do the professional development necessary to help roll out the new standards that are just coming out in social science. The other chart that I included here of the 4 charts was how are we doing to support then staff on these areas. I do want to point out that I do have an error on this slide from the other documentation. The last one, history, social science, when I got it copied over, it's a 3, not a 4 on this area. So I will update that for the rest. But the other documentation with the full report has the chart corrected. But if we look here, this is then how do we support staff? And so this is referring to things like the academic coaches. Where do we have academic coaches in place to continue to support staff moving forward with the implementation of their instruction? Professional learning communities, we've mentioned a couple times there, where we know they're implementing and supporting the rollout of those areas. Class observations that we do, whether it's through our APS, whether it's through individual site teams going through, observing to measure ongoing instruction and support for teachers. Priority 3, the parent engagement. So this one has the district administered a survey? And yes, for the past several years as part of LCAP, we have administered a survey to parents, and are we looking at the results? So this is a few of the points of the survey results to parents to see how are parents feeling about their engagement with the district. Some of these numbers were actually parts of a PowerPoint or information we gave to the board in the spring when we rolled out the new version of the LCAP. And in fact, right now we're going through a parent survey right now as part of the new LCAP development process. So next year's local priority on this area of parent engagement, well, the survey we're giving right now, right? So it'll always kind of just be, yes, did you during that year measure, and are you looking at the participation of parents? And the final one is school climate. And in this one, the state suggests that since many districts do use the California Healthy Kids Survey, that is administered on every other year to be tracking that data and looking at that. And that is actually, we have some of these particular points that I pulled out here. The Healthy Kids Survey has many data points, but we've pulled these out and actually have them in our LCAP plan as goals to measure, right, as we're measuring LCAP Goal 3 in particular. We have these in here so we can track those over time as well. So in each of these areas, we've said as a district, we have met our responsibility for analysis and presenting to you tonight. So we'll take any questions on any of these or about the local indicators in general. And maybe the only other thing I would say is that this could be something that we build into our LCAP process for future years. Like right now, we're kind of outside the LCAP process. I'm kind of saying, oh, we did this when we did the LCAP, oh, we did this when we did the LCAP. So this spring, when we bring the LCAP approved, it could be that this is just an addendum to the LCAP. Here are our findings on our local priorities, because it kind of all goes hand in hand there. So whether it's a separate document that we do in a separate board meeting or just kind of fold it into the LCAP, it could go either way on that. Are we following up on each of these areas to do our self-analysis? So thank you.
Questions, comments, clarification? Trustee Rosso.
I found this interesting, and I kind of would lean towards your suggestion of incorporating it so that we don't have, all these different reports. It gets confusing. But I did have a specific question in this Priority 6 school climate. When you look at, it shows 40% students reported high level of caring adult relationships, and then 75% of students feel safe at school. Well, 75 sounds high, 40 sounds low.
Right.
Is that some area that should be, I don't know how they gauge that with other districts, but that would sound concerning to me.
Yeah, actually, that one I haven't in particular said, okay, let me pull out. They don't do a kind of a healthy kids survey district by district. You'd have to kind of go in. I'd have to go in and look at a few, but it would be one that would be interesting to see. But that, they ask the students questions like, is there an adult at school that you feel connected to? Is there adults at home that you feel you can, right? So they ask these kind of questions, and then based on those responses, that's what they're getting. So this is a high level caring of adult relationships in general, right? So that if we see, okay, we're at 40%, right, what's the implication? First of all, we could look at some comparison data, but then what's the implication for us? Are we building those programs into school? Are we building the trainings into school and for teachers, for connectedness, right? I think that I see it, I personally, and is Jennifer still here? We lost Jennifer. But I see a level connected to that level of school connectedness, right? That number is also a little low, right? At only 53% feeling connected to school. On the other hand, you say, well, 53% of our students, but that's only half, right?
Right.
And we say, oh, we have lots of kids participating in sports and ASB, but if we added them all up, it might be only half of our students, right? So how do we, through our different,
I mean, they're general indicators. I guess there's a lot of things you can measure. This, I
Right.
guess, is the kind of thing like the YMCA Project Cornerstone measures, these types of measures.
Right.
What we can do is pull out the 2015-16 survey results, the total results. We shared it with you.
right, and actually, the total results, but also a couple of years, I have in the last LCAP, I just don't have it in front of me, I did do the 13-14 and the 15-16 side by side, so we could see was there much change, and in some of these categories, there was maybe a percentage point here or there. I can't specifically speak to that one, if it was a slight up or down or stable on that. But actually, there are the surveys from the past few years, because a few of these we did look at and say, oh, 10 years ago, was that a significant difference or not? But this particular number I can't speak to. Right, right. If you look online, they're all on the DataQuest website, and you can pull them up. But
And it's, which grades remind us? 5, 7,
5, 7, 9, 11.
It's a code 9 and 11. Oh, is it right there? Sorry, it's on the bottom.
oh,
No, it's
perfect.
not
Oh, it's right there in my
all
PowerPoint.
Students in the district, it's certain grade levels. And I remember when you shared the results last time, there were big differences between the grade levels. So, I mean, what you did is you.
I did an average of the 4 grade levels, correct? So.
4, but there were big differences in responses at the various grade levels.
Right.
So, we wouldn't want to make too many generalizations on an average of the 4 grade levels.
Right.
Oh, Trustee Pacino, go ahead.
I just have a question. It says every 2 years, so it looks like 17, 18 will be
We're up
doing
for
this.
one this year, exactly.
And we don't get the results back until next fall? Is that?
I don't remember if it's by
I
spring.
mean, it's a long while.
It's a while till they come back, till they process those, exactly. Although it is online now, the last 15, 16 was online, and so it could be a quicker turnaround. I don't remember 15, 16, the speed of the turnaround, though,
Okay.
in terms of when they actually publish the California report for all of us to see, right?
Thanks.
I think I have 3 questions, Kermit.
Mm-hmm.
Who is this for? It's for us?
So,
This survey, et cetera, does this go back to the state, or is this just
so
for
this
us
is
to
all
use?
internal documentation. We are only posting to the state website, to the dashboard, that say we have met our responsibility to do our self-analysis in all 4 areas.
Okay.
So this is just for us. We would maintain this as part of our readiness. Now, at the next year, we come back and say, okay, where are we now? What's our status now on each of these 4 indicators in our self-reflection?
Okay.
Yes, next year we come back and say, yes, we met our responsibility to do a self-analysis and maybe look at some change, right? And next year it would make sense to maybe, on some of these charts, would we have a little, oh, now we feel we're at a 2, or no, we still feel we're at a 1 in this one, right? Or, maybe would there be a way to show that, right? Is there a change? Having said all that, we've done the self-analysis, but how do we present it to you, to the public, as part of our presentation, right?
So all we report to the state is, yes, we did it.
Correct.
But this is for us to use as we will.
Correct.
I'm curious on the parent engagement. So there were 529 responses. And we have about how many parents? It must
About,
be
well, I have 11,000 families, so.
thousands, I know,
yeah, if you-
almost students.
Students, right, so, right,
Okay.
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
So.
right. But then 1 to
so
2 parents per family,
529
right?
out of 8,000, right?
If there's 8,000 families, there's likely, not double it, but a lot more, yeah.
15,000, right,
Yeah.
exactly, 14,000.
I only know it because we've done mailings. I can't
Okay.
remember.
So,
85 or
well,
86.
my
Right.
point is, I think the word, 75% of the parent community members strongly agree that the district values parents. 75% of the respondents.
Correct, correct.
Of 529, so I don't think we should be taking this and saying, wow, 75% of our parents, it's
Right,
only the ones who responded.
Of the student group, that 500 we're just looking at that. I didn't write the number down, but it's fairly statistically significant. I can't tell you to what
It
degree.
is statistically significant?
Because of the 4 grade levels? Did we only survey?
No, this is all parents. This is all
This is all
parents. So,
parents.
so at the point you get to a certain sample size, there's only so many more, doesn't get you any more statistical significance, you know.
Right.
But I
Okay.
can't tell you the exact percentage
Okay.
of statistical significance on that 529. I could follow up on that for you.
Okay, well, no.
But having said that, I do want to say that we're in the process right now of the parent survey for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the fortunate things is we've gathered many more emails from especially elementary in the district. And so actually we just, if anybody we just sent out an email last night with a link to all parents that we have now currently in our system. So we sent out 6,000 emails last night to parents in the district. Now, that we just checked this morning, and another 50 or 100 did the survey. We're on our way here, but we're not in the thousands by any means, right? So we'll do some reminders. We can take advantage of our the fact that we've collected more parent emails to send out a few more reminders over the course of the next few weeks. But at some point we have a number, and we'll see how close within significance and what do we.
We used to do a survey 7-8 years ago of all parents. We used to do a survey of all parents. The district did a survey before LCAP. And I think the most we ever had was like maybe 1,200, something like that. I mean, it's really hard to get anybody to respond to a survey. We probably don't. Probably many of us don't do surveys that come to us, but it's hard to get. In the survey world, 20 to 30% response rate is considered very good.
And we're not there with our
But
500,
we're not at 20%.
but
We're not even
that's why I
close.
thought it was important
Right.
to have the number there to know what then we. So let's say we can double that this year. It'll be interesting to see is there much change in those percentages or not.
Yeah.
As we
Now
watch
that we're
those.
doing more online and more to email, we might get a better
We might-
response.
Exactly.
Okay, now I have a question about the students. So, did the students do this at school? Did they respond to this at school?
Now we're on the
Healthy
school climate
Kids
on the Healthy
survey.
Kids.
Yes.
Yeah, so that one's all done at school, correct.
Okay.
So that is a high percentage if the parent did not opt them out. Right.
Quite a few
We
students.
designate a class period for that, so they do it at school.
Okay, so then when it says 53% of students reported a high level of school connectedness, it's a sizable number of
Correct,
students
correct. It's all or
who are
nearly all,
responding
right.
to that.
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you. Trustee Rosso?
So just clarification again, these are just 4 data points, but, I mean, we actually survey for other things as well. This just happens to be for that.
Correct,
that
on
are in
both
this
surveys,
report.
both the Healthy Kids and the parent survey, right? We had a series of different questions. We pulled out some specific ones that we are looking at here and that we've actually put in our LCAP as ones that we'd like to measure over time. Safety at school, we'd like to make sure we're measuring that each year in our LCAP as part of our school climate goal, for example.
Right, well, to me, these are very strategic data points.
Correct.
And I think they're important things, in other words, there's a lot of value in assessing those points. So, just one last thing. So, again, just clarification on, where you, how would you call it? You scored us or ranked us in each of these areas. So you looked at our data and you just figured this is where we're at? Is
So
that?
this is, it's not really data. If you say, okay, professional learning by content area, let's take the first one. I'm on slide of, the first of the 2 slides there. English language arts, Common Core standards, to what extent, let me have the wording here. To what extent what is our progress in providing professional learning to our teachers? How is our progress in providing professional learning? So we said, okay, what have we done on our professional development days this year? What did we do last year? So that's more of a discussion and say, how do we self-evaluate? It's not kind of a tally. Did we have enough points to say we're a 3? So it really is it was a discussion to determine, okay, based on the things we've done, where would we put ourselves on this
So the staff.
continuum? Correct.
The
correct.
staff determined this is where we are.
This is
we're
what
at.
in this first go through, right?
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Trustee Pisano?
And I just have a question. When you say the staff, we're talking district office staff? Or
We did, for this one, it was Ed Services staff for this first time through, exactly, because we were able to kind of take a picture back based on all the reporting we've had in our work with the sites. we felt we had a fairly good picture in general of where were we. Now, is there some site on next generation science standards that maybe has gone farther than the site, but where generally can we say we've
Because
done,
you're
we've
doing the
provided?
district as
Correct,
opposed
it's a
to
district
individual
picture,
sites.
right.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
One last comment. So again, on the thing where it says number or percentage of misassignments of teachers of English learners, that I know that's a point in time. It shows 3, and I know that's kind of a moving target all the time. Is that our current situation?
Well, that's a Paul question.
I'll be able to.
What's that?
Paul can answer that.
So that data point is actually interesting because all credentials in the state of California now have integrated in them the authority to teach English learners. So in California, if we're getting somebody in Gilroy who's from out of state, then that state might not have the authorization built in. So this term of misassignments for English learners is more of an older term in California because now the credentials have them integrated. So the 3 actually represent 2 vacancies that we have in the district, and then 1 misassignment of English language learners, and that is from a credential outside of the state. That particular person, when I pulled this data, has actually cleared that since then. She was in the process of reapplying for it, and then the 2 vacancies have been filled, and we're in the process of clarifying their credentials with the state. So you are right, it is a moving target. Technically, if somebody walked off the job tomorrow, then that would go to 4. But at that point in time, it represented 2 classroom vacancies and then 1 misassignment of English learners. In this district in general, teacher misassignments, which means somebody is teaching a subject that's outside of their credential, is not very common. The district has done a very good job in making sure those who they hire are credentialed in what they're going to teach. So, but you're right, it's a very low number, but it can go up 1 or 2 at any point of time. I think this data, Director Bierman asked me to pull this data about 3 weeks ago. So it represented about 3 weeks ago. And it's lower right now.
So, and we don't really have anything to compare to other than ourselves, right? This is not intended to be compared against
Correct.
other districts or the state or county or anything.
Not at this point.
Yeah. And for that number in particular, there's a lot of other checkpoints that the district faces in that specific number. We have county audits, we have state audits. So that's a number that's always going to be low because there's a lot of procedures in the district that make sure that we can't do that. So we would expect that would be low. I would imagine if it starts to go up, then that might be a piece of conversation of exactly which part is going up and what we're doing to try to reduce it. But yeah, it's going to be a number that goes up and down all the time based on the labor at the time the data was pulled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question on the same slide. The last one, the number of identified instances where facilities do not meet the good repair standard. I thought that would be Mr. Mesa. It's pop up there. And extreme deficiencies. So then we have 5.77%. So could you tell us how you arrived at that? And
Yes, thank you. So Dan McAuliffe looked at all the schools, and the tool that we use has 15 columns for all 15 sites, so a total of 225 sections. Out of those sections, about 5.7% or so, or 13 sections, ended up being in a state of fair to poor and not in good repair, and these are all found on South Valley and Brownell. So that's how we arrived at that number.
right. So then I hope that as a board, that would translate to us being sure that those are way up on the priority
Correct.
list.
Correct.
Because once we're aware of facility issues, then of course we want to do something about it, right?
Thank you. Great question.
All right, thanks a lot. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Really appreciate your
Okay.
report. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So, we are on 7E, Another information item, this is Student Service End-of-Year Report. And Anna Polito, our Director of Student Services, will present a report to the board on the current status of student services programs.
Okay, great.
Anna, do you mind introducing your team?
I
Because I've
absolutely-
talked about the four of you to the board several times, what a great job you're doing. So I want them to put a face
Absolutely,
to
it's
the
part of
name.
my presentation, but I'll be happy to do it right now. So, good evening, Superintendent Flores, President Midgard, and Vice President Facino, and trustees of the board. I want to thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present and, of course, introduce my team. I cannot tell you how committed, how dedicated, how absolutely lucky I am to have walked in and been able to work with these people. So we have Adrian, who's kind of been our glue. She's actually been our link to the past and kind of helped us as we've kind of navigated and been able to figure out our department. So she is, this year, she's our program specialist for the secondary level. And we have Trisha Green, who is our coordinator. And we have Tammy Irvine, who is our program specialist for elementary. So thank you so much. Okay, so let me do my arrows, right? Where are my arrows? Okay, here we go. Ooh. How do I get out of here? Oh, there we go. Okay. So tonight we're going to update you on 6 areas, starting with our student population to date, our staffing, the support services that we provide, communication with our parents and our sites, and our compliance. We're dealing with compliance issues and the training that we have, the targeted training that we have provided so far this year. So with our student population, about 12.8% of our students that are enrolled are receiving special education services. Our numbers have been pretty consistent. As you can see, we do have a little bit of an increase in our students who are qualifying and meeting eligibility under emotional disturbance, specific learning disability, and autism, which again is not unique to Gilroy. This is kind of a trend that we see across, or we're seeing across the, the country. A number of students that are receiving speech and language services, we've seen a little bit of a decline. That's one of our areas that we were really looking at. We are looking at how we're providing our speech and language services. We have a protocol that we follow, that we are actually looking at the guidelines, making sure that the students that are receiving services are really, it is providing them the benefits that are needed by speech and language services. Again, same thing with occupational services. We've seen a slight dip. That's again, we are again concentrating and looking at our services that are being provided to our students, and if they're meeting criteria to be able to be exited from these services, or if some of the services that providing that they have made the growth that will enable them to continue just to work on their skills within their education program. Right now, we have students that, we have 5 district nurses that help provide, support all of our students, but we also have students with, some very complicated medical needs. So we have students that have licensed vocational nurses that work with them. Some students might have needs where they have feedings that they need to have, that they have diabetic needs that need to be monitored. Residential placements, so this is actually something that we are very excited to announce, that as of last year, we had 6 students that were in residential placements. Some are outside the state of California. And through lots of work and hard work on the students and the parents, we had 1 student that's already transitioned back from a residential program. And they had transitioned, and we eased them back in. They were out of a residential, and we always go from the most restrictive to the least restrictive. So we transitioned them back into a non-public school, and they're on their way. We have a upcoming IEP that they will be transitioning back into a district program. So we were very excited and pleased about that. So our numbers haven't changed very much from last June as far as students that are in non-public schools and our county programs. So we are, again, looking at the students that are being supported in the non-public schools. We are closely monitoring that this year to see if there are students that our district programs are able to support. Because again, the least restrictive environment is really what we're concentrating on for each and all of our students. So staffing. So I'm proud to say that our district special ed student services department and our support staff, and of course my staff, the staff team that we introduced in special education and student services, were fully staffed. I think we have really come together. I mean, again, we are all a new staff. So and as far as our teacher staffing vacancies, we have 2, and thank you to Paul Winslow and Kim. We've been really working on some creative ways to why we're trying to fill these vacancies, how we're still providing services to our student, and making sure we're compliant with our paperwork. So these are just kind of a rundown of the numbers of the the teachers that we have in the classrooms that we're offering in our district programs. And then our support services. So when we're looking at support services, we're primarily talking about, our paraprofessionals, our classroom paraprofessionals, and our behavior support assistants. So this is something that we really are looking at. We're looking at how we are utilizing our staff in these classrooms. Are we using them to their best potential? And then when they are supporting our students, the goal of supporting our students is in the least restrictive environment, and to make sure that they are, rising to their potential, that we are maximizing the potential of our students. And again, making them as independent as possible. So that is one of the things that we're really looking at, the training that our paraprofessionals have and our behavior support systems and how we're utilizing, and that they understand what their role is, that their role is that someday they will not be needed, that our students will be able to be as independent as possible. Communication. So one of the things that was really identified, and we were working very hard, is our communication with the staff that we support, our communication with our parents, and our school sites. One of the things that we do, and we are doing with fidelity, is we have regular monthly meetings. So what we have set up is what we call job-alike meetings. So we are all responsible for the different staff professional groups. The occupational therapists, special education teachers. The special education teachers are meet within their grade level, so we have secondary to elementary. Our speech and language therapists and our psychologists, and then I should have had on here our mental health therapists also meet with Tricia, and our behavior specialists. What we did to try to maximize attendance is that our meetings are calendar for the whole school year, and we looked at when staff meetings are being held. And why it's really important is that actually gives us the time to be able to meet with staff so that they have the opportunity to be with us, but also any of the information, like we're dealing with compliance or any trainings or surveys or things that we need to do, that we have that time to be able to make sure that they're receiving that information. Another thing we're doing is we have been really trying to collaborate with other departments. One of the things that we started this year is we are collaborating with Jennifer Del Bono and the PBIS staff to support students with behavior needs. Behavior needs of our students are increasing and is really identified as a need here in our district, but also districts across the county. And then a representative from our team is also attending the monthly meetings that are for the multi-support teams that principals come to. We also, and I've been attending, we attend the principal meetings, the district-wide principal meetings, and then the grade level, the elementary and secondary principal meetings. Again, making sure that we're connecting with the sites, that we're all working together to be able to support our students. I want to also kind of reference how Tammy Espinosa had talked about, that the classrooms were separate, that we want to integrate, that we're all working together, they're all of our students. I would also like to thank Educational Services, because from day one, we have really been working to collaborate. We meet before even the professional development that was offered in August, and then again in October, to make sure that we're maximizing the professional development that our staff are receiving. So some of our staff, participated in the training for the newly adopted language arts programs. Just really working together, looking at what interventions that we're providing before we get into special ed, looking at the interventions or the things, the instruction that we are providing within our special education programs, and making sure that they're all aligning. And then one thing that we do is everybody's very busy, so we make sure that we meet every Thursday. So we actually have a weekly meeting where the student services team and myself meet. Again, it's making sure that helps us prepare for the job-alike meetings with the staff that we're supporting. And then we also review cases and things that are coming up, or any kind of compliance issues or anything that's pertaining. And then one of the things that I just had the pleasure of doing last week is I provided a training to our transportation services. So again, the transportation, they are another provider that helps us support our students. And I commended them because oftentimes they are the first person and the last person to see the students that we're serving. So they sometimes will help whether the student is going to start off with a good day, or they know, that how the student is doing. So we were really going to provide some ongoing training. So we kind of did a training, and I did a PowerPoint, and they were just very involved about just little things that they could do that would kind of help with supporting the students and identifying the behaviors. But that is something that we really need to look on. I heard their concern. I heard the training that they would like to have, and we are looking at ways to support. So I have some ideas that we'll be moving forward with. And then compliance. So compliance is an issue for all districts. One of the things that I did notice is when we have compliance issues, there's all kinds of ways that we have compliance. A parent can maybe file a complaint of something that we haven't implemented or done. We are also identified for the state for certain areas that are of concern. And so one of the things that when that happens, we really have to look at if there is a systemic issue. And so one of the things that we saw very early on is we were having where parents might request an independent outside evaluation. So how we were handling those, how were we responding, how we were finding providers that would support these requests. And then working with staff, that if an independent evaluation request came in at a school site, was it being communicated to our department? So again, just making sure we're addressing the issues. And then with that, we also looked at how we were responding when a parent or a school site was looking for just a district to provide an assessment. Again, we really kind of tightened up that process, because that was one of the other compliance issues that we would get into trouble, is we weren't meeting our timelines. If a parent or somebody was requesting, they might request at the school site, and it wasn't making it to student services. So I want to commend Tricia, because she had helped us kind of tighten up that process. We have a form letter that goes out that lets the parents know that we have received that request and that we will be addressing it, responding, and how we're going to respond with that. And she's also keeping a nice record so that we know dates that things were received, so we're monitoring our timelines. And then one of the things that we did look at is sometimes when we are receiving an outside evaluation, it is a parent is maybe concerned with this report or the evaluation that we've done. So what we really looked at, and part of our October training, was with our speech and language therapist, our occupational therapist, and our psychologist, we provided what a defensible report would look like. So the components that are needed, the comprehensive assessment that's needed. Sometimes we weren't assessing for all suspected areas of disability, so we're really looking at that. And then another is that we really defined a process for recording the services that we're providing. So sometimes we the logs and records that we were keeping of the services that we were providing to our students were not in a designated area. And so if parents had questions, or if we were in the CDE or was looking for an audit, we didn't always have accurate records of the services that we were providing. So we've gone to an online system, and our support providers have been trained in how to use this online process to record our services. And then training, as I already started to talk about that a little bit, very exciting. October 20th training, after reviewing the audit report that was completed last year looking at the Student Services and Special Education Department, we really looked at targeting the professional development. The feedback from the staff has been very, very positive. In the survey that was done through Ed Services, about 76% of people that participated in the professional development rated it good and excellent. So we were very pleased about that. Again, some of the topics that we really concentrated on were the defensible reports. As I expressed a little bit earlier in my presentation, supporting students with behavior needs and supporting the staff that work with our students with behavior needs is really what we're targeting. So as you'll see as we go over some of the professional development, many support providers, teachers, different programs participated in behavior-driven, behavior-focused trainings. And I'm proud to say that we provided professional development to about 250 staff. So one of the things that I heard loud and clear, and we did, is that, again, we're all partnering, we're all working together. So our professional development that we provided to teachers, we also provided the same professional development to our paraprofessionals, and they attended with the teachers that they serve. Again, to make sure that they're getting the same training. They are, again, they're a paraprofessional and they are working with us together. So again, this is just a little kind of a closer look at what we provided. Another area that was that we wanted to target was our new teachers. So we have many new teachers in our special education classrooms that are interns, that are on emergency credentials. And so thanks to Adrienne, she helped provide that for some of our new teachers. I mean, report writing, just kind of the basic, we called it SPED 101. So that had rated highly too amongst our teachers. And then our SDC classes, one of the programs that the Student Services Department had purchased was Sonde, and it was a supplemental program to the benchmark ELA program that was purchased by, that is being used in the general education programs. Some of our behavior training was provided by the County Office of Ed, and they did behavior as communication. And then another training that they did that went over very well was what we called a calm down kit. So they actually did a make and take, where they actually created a kit to use with students. And it was very nice, because in some of my classroom visits, I have seen it on teachers' desks, and I've had even professionals and people stop me and tell me how exciting that was, that they actually liked that training that they were receiving that they could implement right away in their classrooms. So again, this is just more of a closer look at that. One of the things, and working especially with our high school, is looking that our students are being able to be included more, that our teachers in our special day class and our RSP teachers are really working with the general ed teachers. So we started the conversation about what different levels of support look like, what co-teaching looks like, and inclusion. And that was well received. So I mean, we're at just the very beginning of all this, but the feedback and the excitement in the room was really nice. Our goals for this year, again, are to continue to target our professional development for our staff, to increase our communication with our Student Services Department to our school sites, to increase our internal staffing capacity. So we do have support services that are provided by outside agencies, and we really want to be able to prepare our staff to be able to support our students and our staff within. We want to increase our students' access to grade level instruction by providing the teacher training and the appropriate class materials. So that's one of the things we've looked at. And at the elementary school, again, we have the Sonde to help support our ELA, but we're looking at our math. We're actually looking at what the needed support materials are for our middle school programs and junior high, and Adrian is actually, we have a release day set up for the department heads at the schools to meet together to really look at that and see what is needed. And then again, with the behavior and mental health services, I mean, that is just a need across all districts. And as you could see, one of the items that was a consent item is Discovery Health to help them. They're another agency that we are onboarding that is, in the past, has worked with our students and to help provide mental health services. And that's it.
Thank you very much for this report. Board members, questions, comments? Trustee Russell.
Thank you for your presentation, and it's great to see your whole team here. And I'm very pleased with that we have a great team in place. Glad to have you. And thank you for the presentation. I was curious, are we considered, I know compliance was an issue for our district, so are we considered compliant?
Well, that's a good question. We have areas that we'll definitely improve. I have to say that pretty much all districts have compliance issues. It's something we really need to work on. One of the things that we're going to be going through is a program indicator review. That the state will be looking at our records and seeing how we're doing. And at this point, they're only looking at statewide assessments and how we're addressing that with our students and if they're making progress. So with that said, I have to say we're doing pretty well. I go to our Southeast SELPA meetings, our special education local planning areas, and I don't know how to say this, but we're all in about the same boat. So, I mean, of course, this is always an area that we want us to improve because when we have compliance issues, then that puts us on the radar for a big comprehensive review, and we never want that. So, it's something that we definitely need to work on. And compliance, besides being compliant with the state, compliance helps us address these other issues, like our other issues of looking at, student progress, looking at outside requests and things like that. So,
I know that's a big subject area, and I didn't ask, in advance on those kinds of things. So I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I mean, I'm trying, right now I have to say, and again, it could have been part of the transition, but when I came here, we had several compliance issues that we had to address. And I'd have to say in the very beginning, I was on a first name basis with our investigator for CDE. But I would have to say, I think they have they're not, pouring in. So I think we are addressing them. And what happens is the sooner we address, and part of when we address our compliance issues, we have to submit a plan, like what we're going to do to try to help this not happen again. And, we're implementing some of the things that we've done. And so I know it's going to take a while, but I think we're off to a good start.
Okay, great.
Yes, Trustee Good.
Sure.
You mentioned that in your training, you went over defensible IEPs. And what do you mean by that? Defensible to who?
So if we were to have, if a IEP team, a parent, or if we were to end up in due process, it would be defensible, meaning did we complete all the necessary components? Do we do the required assessment in areas of need? So when we were looking at, and sometimes when we get an outside assessment request, it was primarily because there's something that maybe was not covered in the assessment or the reports that we were doing.
Historically, we've gotten ourselves in trouble with IEPs in terms of offering things that shouldn't be offered, in particular non-public schools and other very expensive items. Yes. Do we have a system in place yet so that those are not done without being thoroughly vetted? And making sure that they're the only option?
Right. So the systems in place is right here. So what we are trying to do, again, provide training and just educating and letting people know. And what you're maybe addressing is sometimes what we call favor over FAPE. FAPE is what is a free and appropriate education. So we are looking at what that student needs to succeed, what that student needs to be able to access their education. So we are really working with that, because sometimes, we want to make people happy. It's hard to have the tough conversations, and we're trying to work with, and sometimes it's easier to maybe give in to something that might not be the best. And so we're just really trying to work with our staff to be educated in what the options are, and really have these conversations. And again, when you're talking about like the non-public schools, that's one of the things we are working with, because again, we look at the continuum of options, and sometimes, parents or staff might think that is the best option, but that might be the least restrictive. So it's just bringing them back and being student focused, student center focused.
Is there a threshold at which someone, say at a level below you, cannot include non-public schools part of an IEP, or can anybody just say, yeah, sure?
Well, if we are considering, or if a team is possibly considering a non-public school, that means there's probably some very serious needs. And so I would hope that we have explored all the options. So before we get to a non-public school, a lot of those IEPs, we are making sure that we are attending. Or what we're trying to do is, there's 4 of us, if there are students who are having some difficulties or really need support, we are meeting with teams ahead of time. So what we're doing is we are meeting with the staff before the IEP. So I have to say, lately, I don't think we've had anything that's been offered that we haven't really been a part of, as far as like non-public schools. We're really looking at also to, where I see a need is offering the additional para support. Because if a student needs it, they absolutely need it. But sometimes, a para or something does not replace good instruction. And even though it might seem like it's really supporting the student, again, that's probably one of the most restrictive things, to have an adult with you all the time. So,
Speaking for myself only, not for the board, I would
Right.
like to see some sort of a procedure where there's a threshold at which it has to go to your level. In other words, it can't be approved at a level lower than yours. And that's just me talking. We
Right.
haven't discussed this as a
Right.
board. But I
Right.
would like some type of stopgap measures, because in the past, before, it's been abused.
Right.
And we've gotten in some real expensive
Right.
contracts and obligations that we otherwise shouldn't have been. And at least if we had something in place like that, a threshold and a requirement that you or
Right.
there be a process so that it's just not approved
Right.
willy-nilly.
Right. And we will definitely be working on that. We have been working on that informally, where we kind of get ourselves, I don't know how to put this, but we want to have procedures, but we don't want to have procedures that maybe limit and look like we're not discussing the range of options in an IEP. So if we're already saying, if it comes up in an IEP, what we're working with our staff is, if it's something, we can revisit that, and look at the options to assess and let them know the procedures that need to happen. Like, for instance, if we're looking at like a non-public school, the options that we need and going over the continuum of services so they don't jump. So that in itself, if we're educating them, they should understand that. And we can absolutely look at guidelines, but I just don't really want to put anything in writing, because again, that prevents the IEP team from really having the discussion of what.
This is something we'd need legal help with, because we couldn't put anything in writing that said that non-public school is not going to happen, that kind of.
Oh, I'm not saying that, but when you're going to send somebody to a non-public school and it's going to cost $300,000 to send them out of state for one student, I have a problem with those type of financial decisions being made without some sort of process or procedure at a high level.
Yeah, and I think having one of them, and we've had this discussion with principals already, and have been doing it with some one-on-one, is that they have to have one of them involved before that kind of discussion occurs. So that's the stopgap measure. It's not saying that it won't be the outcome, because we can't say that, because that would be in violation of IDEA.
Well, you're not saying it's not going to happen. What you are saying is, these things are going to have to occur before that happens.
Right.
That's all.
Right. And Anna brought that up early on in her tenure, when we started talking about this. So we've been talking with principals, you're talking in your job-alike meetings with people doing the assessments, and they have to call and ask for one of the 4 of them to be at any high-risk IEP, meaning at risk of an outside placement, a county placement, at risk from a financial standpoint, but yet we have to follow the prescribed process in the act. We can't, we couldn't ever say, well, we're not going to consider that as an option, because that's where you bring the word defensible in, and that came from our attorneys, by the way.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is a process.
Yep.
If you're gonna get this, then you're gonna go, these things are gonna happen first.
Right. Yep.
That's all.
Well, we agree.
I mean, you spend $300,000 for one student.
I know.
That's the ADA for 30 students. So what do those other 30 students get? They get nothing. So.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if it's any assurance, but since we have been here, there have been no IEPs that have been held that they have offered MPS without one of us there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a question.
Oh, sure.
On your first slide, we have a 12.8% SPED population. If I remember correctly, back in the day, rule of thumb was about 10%. Is that still holding true?
It is. I mean,
Okay.
usually rule of thumb is about 10. Again, being positive, we really want to look at that services, but there are some districts in our SELPA that are at 15, so.
Yeah, and part of it is the speech and language.
Part of it is the speech and language.
And, I mean, remember, we had a couple of outside reports in the last 10 years, and they always zero in on a couple of the disability areas, and this is one that we're high.
And that is one of the things we're looking at, because sometimes as of like a safety net, parents they want to make sure students are getting services. So that's one of the things that we really are working with and educating, I had and not speech, but I had a conversation with another provider, and we were talking about their process, what they look at when they would be looking at exiting a student. And one of the person said to me, well, I will never, they have a disability. So I thought, oh. So they will always have a disability, but our job is to make sure that they have the skills to be able to compensate and be successful in spite of having the disability. So, I mean, it's just conversations like that. And if they have a speech and language, is direct service now still? Sometimes even I'm looking at our numbers, and our numbers are excessively high in high school.
Yes.
And that is where we really need to be looking at, because when the student graduates, they're going to move to a 504 plan anyway. And so just having that conversation that they can still, if they still need these supports, there are other ways to do it. And again, least restrictive environment.
Thank you.
Trustee Russell.
The percentage of students that actually, of our SPED students that actually have IUPs, is it all of them?
This 12.8?
Is all of them.
They all have IEP.
They all have IEPs.
That's why they're in the percentage.
Right.
Well, was it not an issue in the past that we had students that were getting special ed that didn't have an IUP?
That's pretty rare.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, sometimes what it might be is sometimes students now, even with Section 504 students, will have 504 plans, and they can possibly receive services that look like they would be under an IEP, so I don't know, maybe that's what you're referring to.
That's kind of one of the golden rules of
Right.
special ed, that you have to be identified to receive services.
Right.
I mean, occasionally there'll be a situation, we talked about one the other day, where a student was going to the resource room temporarily. That's pretty unusual. Normally, they're identified, that services on the IEP, and that's where you get this percentage.
And that is a combination. It could be students that have multiple services under the IEP, and it could be students that might have an IEP just for speech and language services.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Thank you for this report. I think the board is kind of, okay, again, I'm speaking for myself. I think we're kind of hyper about this because we know that last year was like an encroachment of $800,000 correct?
New.
New.
The total encroachment is in the millions.
That was new.
Millions.
So that's of concern to us too, of course. So I want to ask about, do errors on the IEPs lead to these IEEs?
They absolutely can.
And then also, do parents just come in of their own volition and say, I want an IEE? Or are there advocates pushing them in that direction?
I'd say yes to both. I do.
Pardon me? What?
I would say yes
Okay.
to both.
Okay.
I do see a trend, and parents are requesting, and there are advocates' names that I'm seeing more and more. And what we are also seeing is that IEE requests are being made with specific evaluators that they want to have evaluate. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at. We have our Southeast SELPA, we have a list of what we have pre-approved. Now, when they ask for an IEE assessment, we have to both agree. So if a parent or an outside, they want this, we don't necessarily have to agree to that. So what we're really looking at, but what we do, and we also negotiate on a price and how that goes. And we are looking at implementing, and we have what our list is for Southeast SELPA, and countering back if they want a particular IEE assessor, we will offer, or, just trying to negotiate. That's another thing that we were looking at is some of the IEE assessors, where I'm used to is we agree to a certain amount, and some of the IEE assessors that we have been performing some of the evaluations will come back and say, oh, and then charge more, like, oh, I need this for the IEP, and so that's one of the things we're working at, that if we're agreeing on $5,000, it's $5,000.
Okay, because we're seeing more and more of those
We
on
are
our agendas.
seeing more and more.
Yeah. So then this is a follow-up question to what Trustee Good was talking about. So is there a flow chart per se that says you do this and you do this and you can go there, you can go there, or no? Or is it just kind of hit and miss?
I'm sorry.
Well, when IEPs are being written, is there a specific, or can somebody just say at any time, well, I want non-public school for my child?
A parent can request that, absolutely. That could be part of the discussion. What we're also working with is that if that does come up at an IEP, that could be part of the discussion, but that we reconvene. Because some of the things when we look at, and we're looking at what our offer of FAPE, and that might be what they're looking at, the non-public school, what we have to support that is the best placement. So explaining that, to the parent, explaining that to the team. I don't know if that's answering your question.
Pretty complicated. So
Right.
if you're at an IEP and the parents are insisting they want an NPS, and the district's saying, we don't believe that's the appropriate placement, we think we have a program that can serve this child, the parent can ultimately just take us to due process, and they typically do. These that really want an NPS placement, particularly the more recent ones where they've ended up out of state.
Right.
Those were really, long, complicated conversations between the district and the parent. So ultimately, in the end, and you've seen some recommendations from our special ed attorney, is sometimes we do agree to a placement as short as possible, usually like a year, to try to bring that student back to the district. And you're bringing one back now, and we did bring
We have a
back
second
one last
actually.
year.
We have a second one that we're having an IEP that will be
Right.
coming back by the end of the year.
Right. And I know this doesn't make you feel any better because they do cost a lot of money. We don't have that many.
We don't have that many.
So
We do not have that many.
I know there are some districts where, they have 15, 20 kids out in NPS. We don't have that. That's the good news. But the ones we have are very expensive.
Yes.
And we really are looking at them. I mean, our team that we're attending all the IEPs consistently. So we are looking for opportunities for them to be able to be transitioned back. So I think on both those, to point out that's why it's very important, because sometimes we do get into legal issues when we don't have the proper testing. We don't have our IEPs. If we didn't have a discussion about, like if a parent was asking for a non-public school and we didn't have a complete comprehensive discussion, took their input, that's a procedural error that could get us into trouble, and we could end up, having to place the student. So we're looking at all kinds of.
But, I think what you're asking is, do they have procedures, safeguards in place? And what I've been hearing from Anna, because we have a weekly standing meeting, is yes. You were describing a process that Trish is in charge of now to make sure, for instance, where we get in procedural problems is with timelines and forms, assessments, and they're now tracking that very carefully. So one example of that is if a parent requests an assessment at the site level, unfortunately, what was happening is that didn't always get here within the required timelines. The next thing you know, we've got an issue with a compliance problem because we're off on the timeline. So they're tracking that now very carefully.
If the chart included in the presentation is correct, we have 26 placements in non-public schools right now.
Is it 26 in non-public?
And that's an increase of 10
Yeah, the
from June.
residential was a 6.
Residential is 6.
That's including.
Yeah,
the 6.
the residentials are the really expensive ones. Those are the 300,000.
And the residential has a non-public school attached to it.
Yes, yeah. Non-public schools, we have a bunch in the area. We transport kids to those every day, and those could be 20, 30, 40,000, 50. The residentials, are the ones I was referencing that we've discussed just about every one of them. And they've ranged from, 150 to 300,000.
And, there's, areas to improve on. But I have to say, when it's coming to non-public school, I actually haven't seen that has been offered even before our time without student services being included. And partly, I think that is because to facilitate that placement, we would need to be involved.
Right.
So I really have to say that I haven't necessarily really seen that even in the paperwork and things in the past.
Well, I think we're using the terms differently here because the high-profile ones that we've been dealing with are the residential placements. The non-public school, we're always going to have the kids that we transport to Santa Cruz and San Jose every day, that we don't have a program in the district to serve them, but they're not. I mean, we can give you the breakdown financially on those if you want to see the cost of each of those. We can do that. So I don't know if we answered your questions.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate the report and your
And I just want to commend
answering our
this
questions.
team. I think they're doing a great job. Again, I meet with Anna every Monday morning, and she brings an agenda, and we talk through lots and lots of issues, and I've been very impressed with their proactive approach. And sometimes it's not, people don't like it, quite frankly, because they're tightening the procedures, and some people want to just be able to place kids, like, for instance, into a program that the district offers, that it's at a different site. They now have procedures in place that's just not going to happen at an IEP meeting automatically.
And we're really happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good.
And your team.
And your team, yes.
Yes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so item 7F is approval of a school bus purchase. This is an action item, and Patricia Tice, Transportation Supervisor, and Alvaro Mesa, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, will present this item for approval.
And poor Trish is probably going to be at work at what, 6 a.m.?
I'm up at 4, yes.
Yes. Wow.
Dispatch gets in at 5. Good evening. Thank you very much, Madam President, Dr. Flores, Board of Trustees. We'd like to present to purchase a mid-size bus to transport our McKinney-Vento students. Right now, we're using an 84-passenger bus for approximately anywhere from 12 to 30 kids. It varies just depending on the program. Right now, we're going up to Morgan Hill twice a day and back and all over the district. So the smaller bus is not only economical, but it also makes sense to free up the bigger bus that we could use for the new incoming Alexander station to provide transportation for that bigger group without having to purchase an 84-passenger bus at $169,000. So I'm recommending that we go with Creative Bus Sales. I was able to view the bus, very well made. The driver's seat is very ergonomically correct, very comfortable, good visuals. It has dual air conditioning front and rear for the comfort of the passengers and the students on board. This will save us approximately $48,000 besides having to purchase a whole new big bus.
And move approval for purchase of the bus from Creative Bus as recommended.
Second?
Second.
I got a question.
Question?
Oh, we have a question, excuse
Okay.
me. Go ahead.
I know we piloted bringing a bus on that was clean.
Electric?
Yeah. What, I mean, are there options with that?
There are currently grants going throughout the state right now. The one that includes electric buses are smaller 20-passenger vehicles, but that also includes infrastructure. And since we're unsure about our yard being relocated with the speed rail and everything, we really don't want to invest into that infrastructure that goes along with the electric bus. The electric bus that we had in the past did not have the mileage range that we needed to transport our students from the rural areas in. So now the smaller buses are going up to about 100 miles distance between charges. But there's also grants to replace our older buses. We have 4 eligible buses that I'm going to be coming back to you to present that we can give a bus to get a bus, and that would be a cleaner diesel burning bus.
Thank you.
We promise if you come back, we'll put you at the top of the agenda.
Thank you.
Anyway, so we have a motion and a second, and this would be a roll call vote.
Heather Bass,
Yes.
B.C. Doyle,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
Pat Midgard,
Yes?
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Pacino,
Yes.
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
This passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming this evening.
I'm sorry, Pat, can I just make a quick
Oh, I'm
comment?
sorry.
No, it's quite all right. I just wanted to say, I work with your drivers on a regular basis, and they are an exceptional group. Thank you so much for the services you provide.
Yes, they're a good group.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We are to 7G, and this is the second reading and approval of updates to board policies. And the board will review updates, revisions to the policies. Yes, Trustee Good.
Yeah, there's one I didn't catch last time. On page 33, the second full paragraph, it requires us to have open meetings for board member orientation, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so I would like to delete that paragraph.
The only thing I would say is when we have new board members, I do an orientation.
Right, you do an orientation.
Yep.
If someone who's going to be competent wants to run for the board, they're going to attend meetings, they're going to talk to us, they're going to talk to you. I think having a board meeting for new board member orientation doesn't make any sense at all. And this says shall.
Shall, I know.
So I want to delete the whole paragraph.
Okay.
I would agree, it's in the middle of page 33, as early as possible. During open meetings, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I try to do the
Wow.
orientation like within the month after
Right,
board members are appointed or elected.
okay. Other comments? Something you'd like to delete, change, add?
If there's no other comments, I would move that we approve this, deleting that paragraph.
I see that Ms. Pacino has a
Oh,
huge stack of ideas.
then never mind. Please
You're not
carry
done
on.
yet.
On the second reading,
Yeah, well, because I left this at home the first time. I'm sorry.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so,
well, we may have a third reading then.
I'm sorry. On Board Policy 0100A.
Page number.
Well, the old one, the original one was
Oh.
page 5, but I think it's page 3 actually in this one, if I look correctly.
And where are you?
I am on number 2, where half of it has been erased, or I'm sorry, deleted. And it says, every student should have an opportunity. I want to change that to shall. I don't want to hear that we should give our kids opportunities, but we shall have an opportunity to receive a quality education regardless of his, her social, cultural, or
Good.
economic.
Sorry, we didn't catch that.
That's, okay. And then to board policy 2140B, the evaluation of the superintendent.
What page was it then?
And the
Maybe we'll
old
get
one was
close.
page 20.
Oh.
We numbered them just so we wouldn't have
I
to hunt
know.
and peck like this,
I
Pat.
know.
You're dragging us down.
Can you read it out loud, what's your concern?
Well, my question is, it says prior to the evaluation, this is the evaluation of the superintendent, prior to the evaluation, the superintendent shall provide to the board for its review a report of progress towards district goals, the superintendent's self-appraisal of accomplishments and performance, and a statement of actions taken to address any board recommendations from the previous evaluation.
I don't see where you're at.
Me either.
Okay, 2140B.
That's what you said, yeah.
It's the second page, evaluation of the superintendent. It's right above the box where it says note typically each board member.
Okay.
Well, in the
It's
old,
page- Looks like it's page 7 at this point.
sorry. So, do you,
Well, I think that needs to be just worded to fit our process, which is what we did tonight.
right, but you don't give us a report before, and this says you shall do that, so.
No,
So I think,
it's totally up to you.
I think we need to,
I think we should go in line with the process that we have now.
yeah, I would agree.
You do reflect, but it's after.
Well, I did my own assessment of the items for
Right.
tonight.
Right.
Plus you give us a weekly report.
And then I give you a brief report after, so.
Right. If we change it to a may?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to having that report.
I could live with that.
Okay, May would be fine with
It'd be
me.
easier. Okay. And I'm sorry. Okay, so now go to the president. So that's Board Bylaws 9121B.
Okay,
We had a big discussion on this last time.
I think that's on page
What page is that,
19.
Linda?
Starts on 18.
18 or
18. Page 18.
Thank you.
And actually, it's the second page, second and third page on that I'm looking at. Number 6, that they deleted, restrict discussion to the question when a motion is before the board.
We brought that back last time.
Okay, very good. And number 9, be responsible for the orderly conduct. Did we leave that in?
I think it's somewhere else.
it is in green. It's number 10 now.
Okay. And then the other one is, this is in 2 different places. The president shall have the same rights as other members. It's also on the next page that was deleted. President shall have the same rights. All of that on the, which would be
So we
your
correct,
page
we already
20.
deleted it.
We deleted it.
Yeah.
And I would leave it in.
Twice?
No,
That's
we
it,
delete
twice.
one,
No, we just moved it.
but the other one is, it deleted move in second. And I would say leave move in second in. Why can't the president move in second? That's what I want to have back in.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. They should have the right to move in second.
I mean, we generally won't, but they should have the right to. Okay,
I agree with that.
And then,
I disagree. All union leaders and presidents are not allowed to motion or second.
Well, I guess it'd be a Robert's Rule of Order thing. We'd have to do some research before we could act on it.
But we, regardless of what Roberts says, we've always treated the president as a board member, right? Why?
Yes?
I don't see that there's any reason to take away that power.
He is a board member.
Right.
they are a
Just
board,
like
yeah,
everybody
they're
else.
elected like everybody else, so
Yeah.
why wouldn't they have the same rights as anybody
You're
else?
elected as a board member, not as a president.
Exactly.
We select our own president.
Yes.
Exactly. So, I don't know, do we need to look at some legal issue with that? No.
I think we have consensus.
It's a board bylaw.
Yeah.
It's not, okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with putting them back in.
The other one that I would leave in is consulting with the superintendent or designee on the preparation of the board's agenda. Did we?
No, it's in there.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
right here, it's in green.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I tried looking at both of those and calling such meetings, there, that's in too, thank you.
Yeah, they're in.
And then the next one is leading the board's advocacy, it's on the top of the next page. That one.
Yeah, we talked about that and deleted it.
So that is stricken
And- Okay, so that was taken out?
Yeah. You want it
Can
in?
you, well, can we talk about why that was taken out?
I don't think that's really the president's role. Lead the board's advocacy efforts to build support within the local community and at state and national levels. It might be if the board wants that done, but I don't think.
As a normal, everyday responsibility? You don't think it's?
No.
Okay, I could live without it. I couldn't remember.
Well, the board has, on occasion, asked the board president
Yes.
and superintendent to go advocate for a position. The board can always do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Oh.
All right. And then we changed the shall to may participate?
Correct.
Correct? Okay. All right, so I'm done with that one.
Oh, no, there's more.
She's your vice president.
I know. Okay, I have an issue with Board Bylaw 9230C. It's about the orientation of new board members.
Is that a dog? 9230C.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so it's towards the end of that bylaw where it says, in addition, the superintendent
34.
or designee
Shall provide.
shall provide, okay. So at the very end of that, this is nitpicky, but minutes of recent open board meetings. Why does the superintendent have to give a new board member minutes of recent open board meetings when they're online?
Yeah, we wouldn't do that now, because they're online. We
They're
just
online.
refer them to the online
Policy
minutes.
manual also online? It seems like some of those things are just public documents that are,
Yeah, people access board policies online now, too. We don't print out the board policy manual for new board members.
Right, and it says shall.
but provide could be, here's a link.
Yeah.
There you
Tell
go.
them where to get it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good, very good. And they deleted, incoming members are encouraged to attend board meetings and review agenda materials available to the public in order to become familiar with current issues facing the district. And I don't get why that's
We
deleted.
do that. That's what we do, yeah.
I would leave that in.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't think we discussed that and decided to delete it.
No, it's deleted. I mean,
Yeah.
CSBA deleted it. I would
agree to
include it.
restore it.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
didn't.
I think that's important.
We should encourage them to do
Find out
that.
like this, they
Absolutely.
did it, right?
And you'll be very happy to know that's it.
Yay.
Sorry.
Editing fun.
Okay, how about I move approval with all those changes?
It's been moved and seconded. Approval with all the changes that have been noted. This is a roll call vote?
Heather Bass.
Yes.
B.C. Doyle.
Yes.
Mark Good.
Yes.
Pat Midgard.
Yes.
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Pacino.
Yes,
Jaime Rosso.
Yes.
Okay.
thank you all.
That's good. Okay, board member reports. Trustee Pace.
I would like to invite everyone to the Gilroy High Choir Gala tomorrow evening at 6:30 at the Gilroy High Student Center. It's the last several years, it's been a fun event, and so come on down. It's a fundraiser if you want to participate.
I believe this is the one that the acoustician is going to be there?
I'm not sure about
He's
that.
actually going to be there in the afternoon, right? Yeah,
Oh, he's not going to be there in the evening?
no.
He might, if they're performing, he'll stay.
Are they performing, James?
There will be singing, I'm not sure if it's a
The whole
performance.
choir is
Oh, it's
not
not
going to
the whole choir.
perform.
Okay.
Also, I had the opportunity to attend, the county office hosted a CS in SV, Computer Science in Silicon Valley forum. Ms. Padilla was also there with me, and it was a good session. I learned that the state has issued K through 12 computer science standards. So this draft, so it's coming. But beyond that, you know, computer science are life skills if you want to understand the world we live in. I think we have an obligation to teach our children how the world works. There were teachers there from around Santa Clara County talking about how they are integrating computer science into their curriculum. They were fifth grade and high school and that kind of thing. Is fascinating, and there's some good resources around. They pointed out that it's an equity issue as well, because the world is full of computers, and if the haves and have-nots, that can further divide our society. So I would like to, I'm excited about computer science, and I think the district should thank you for going, and I think we have an opportunity here to be a part of something important. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. I'm glad you went. That's really good to have a voice. Okay, any other reports? So, upcoming and new referral agenda items. You can look at the list that Gina keeps for us. Whoops, excuse me.
We'll need to start at 5 instead of 5:30 next meeting.
Pat,
Oh,
Yes.
5,
To
okay.
throw in
5 and 6.
I had mentioned to Debbie that I had seen a PBS report on dyslexia and how most public schools are not addressing the problem or doing a poor job of doing it. And I would like to have that at some point as a conversation at the board level to talk about what we're doing, how we're addressing that issue.
Yeah, and I told Jaime I'd like to see the PBS report.
And I emailed
Dyslexia, so.
it to the whole board.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
I'll share it with Anna.
Great. Okay, yes.
You said we will be at 5 and not 5:30, but that's on the 16th,
Yes.
right? That's not the special meeting.
Special meeting is at 6.
Okay.
Next Tuesday is at 6, and it'll probably be an hour and a half is my guess. But because we didn't do Rod Kelly tonight,
Yes.
we need to start at 5 on the 16th. So closed session at 5, study session at 5:30.
Okay. So I was just going to read those briefly. So the next regular meeting will be on Thursday, November 16th. And closed session will be at 5, followed by a study session at 6 and
5:30?
5:30.
5:30. I guess because I always want to.
It says 6, but it's 5:30.
Okay. 5:30, followed by a study session at 6, open session at 7.
No, closed session at 5, study session at 5:30.
So we're starting at 5?
Yes.
Starting at 5.
Okay.
We're gonna do the-
Closed session will be at 5.
Yes.
And then that'll be followed by a study session at 6.
5:30.
5:30, sorry. I will get this right eventually. And open session at 7, should we say?
Yes.
Okay.
That remains the same.
Okay. Now, a special meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, November 7th at 6 p.m. And the agenda will be available on the district's website by 5 p.m. Friday, November 3rd. With that, the meeting is adjourned.